Chapter 1428. Beast God brought a few level 9 powerhouses and teleported to the demon plane. Then, he rode the Beast God temple straight to the fairy plane. The two girls, the demon devourer Yao and Yi Zishi, were doted on by everyone and were not afraid of anything. They thought that with Yi Qinghan and Little Black around, no one in the fairy plane would dare to touch them. The Beast God had felt that the two of them were very unfriendly the last time he met Yao Mu and Yao Concubine, so he had to go this time. Although the Beast God believed that no one would dare to move against the Fey powerhouses once Yao Yao and Yao Yao announced their names, the Beast God was still burning with anxiety. Yao Yao was Xiao Hei's darling. If Xiao Hei knew that Yao Yao and Yi Zishi were captured by the fairy plane and without Yi Qinghan to suppress them, Xiao Hei would definitely kill everyone in the fairy plane. In a tunnel, 5 figures were running as fast as lightning. After passing more than 10 tunnels, they found a teleportation restriction. The 5 of them rushed in and disappeared in the tunnel. Not long after the 5 teleported, more than 10 powerhouses with extremely powerful auras rushed in. Looking at the empty tunnel, they were so angry that they started cursing. Cunning humans, they actually escaped. They're from the divine plane. They killed so many powerhouses in the dragon-human plane, but they didn't kill a single one of them. F***CK. Humph, don't let us meet them during the final battle. Otherwise, we'll kill them all. The 10 of them were all half-dragons. Their bodies were covered in scales. Their heads were dragon heads, but their faces were human faces. Their bodies were human, but they had long tails. Looking at their auras, they were all level 9 supreme martial artists. The 10 of them cursed for a while before turning around to continue searching for targets. In a tunnel of Demon Mountain, Zhu Yi and the others sat on the ground powerlessly. Their clothes were messy, their faces bitter, and their bodies were covered in blood. The blood wasn't from the enemy, but from themselves. Zhu Yi's back was badly mutilated. Ice Queen supported her with heartache, but Zhu Yi sighed and said, "It's useless. It's been more than 80 years, and we only have a little over 4 million points now. There's no need to continue running around. Let's wait for the final battle to begin and announce our defeat." Queen Zhu Yi, Mo Shanghuang, how are your injuries? The hidden ruler looked at the two of them with concern. The 5 of them faced dozens of Dragonman Grade 9 Supreme Venerables. If not for them running fast, if not for the Ice Queen's ice element attack slowing them down, all of them would have died. Zhu Yi shook her head and said nothing, but Mo Shanghuang grinned and said in a muffled voice, "I won't die yet." However, Yi Feihu's face was filled with indignation. He looked at Zhu Yi and said, "You really don't want to fight anymore? What can we use to fight?" Zhu Yi shook her head and sighed. "There's still a few more years before we can get more than 5 million points. If we die, not a single one of the Celestial Realm army will be able to return. Let's surrender. Even if we are attacked by other planes, we can use the restrictive spell to delay them until Emperor Xiao Hei wakes up and returns." God damn it. Yi Feihu was filled with rage, but he had nowhere to vent it. He could only punch the wall hard, causing the tunnel to shake and mud to fall. The Ice Queen and Mo Shanghuang hidden ruler looked at each other, and a hint of sadness flashed in their eyes. Zhu Yi's words were good, but what if the divine world was attacked by a strong plane like the Dragonman plane? Could the restrictive spell really defend against it? Xiao Hei might have already woken up, or he might only wake up tens of thousands of years later. No one could be sure of this. What if Xiao Hei didn't wake up? What if Yi Qinghan didn't return? Blood would flow like a river in the divine world, and corpses would be everywhere. No one dared to think about it. They could only stay in the tunnel and prepare to spend the next few years in silence. They would defend for another month, teleport to the peak of the board, and announce their defeat. Xiao Hei had indeed woken up. Lei Zhen sat in Zhu Yi's palace and received reports from a few people. A white-shirt teen suddenly walked in from the door. The teen was handsome, and he actually had an ethereal aura around him. He didn't give off any aura at all, and his black eyes didn't look lively anymore. Instead, they were deep as the ocean, like an endless void. What shocked Lei Jin the most was that Xiao He smiled at him and sat beside him. The three honorables who were reporting didn't notice at all. Pa! When Little Black glanced at the three venerables, the three of them inexplicably fainted. The teacup in Lei Jin's hand finally fell to the ground due to the trembling of his hand. It fell to the ground and splashed. Xiao He, your strength. What level has it reached? Lei Jin's eyes instantly emitted a dazzling light. He stared at Xiao He, and the muscles on his face were trembling. Xiao He crossed his legs and grabbed a spirit fruit. He took a big bite, and his ethereal aura immediately became frivolous. He grinned and flipped his hair. Not too strong. I guess I can barely exchange a few moves with Pan Xing. Hiss, Lei Jin took a deep breath and swallowed a few times. He then said with a trembling voice, exchange a few moves with Pan Xing? Why don't you believe me? Why don't I go and exchange a few moves with Pan Xing in the next dimensional war? Xiao He's expression was casual. After he finished speaking, he raised his eyebrows and asked in confusion, why aren't Zhu Yi and the others in the divine realm? There isn't even a 9th grade supreme martial artist. Boss isn't back yet? If Xiao He didn't mention it, Lei Jin would have forgotten. He immediately said with a nervous expression, Xiao He, you don't know. You slept for 10,000 years, and the dimensional war opened again. Zhu Yi and the others brought people there. The beast god was originally in the divine realm. Yao Yao and Zishi secretly went to the fairy plane to look for little Han. The beast god hurried over and hasn't returned yet. He hasn't sent any news either. I'm so worried. What do you think we should do now? What? Lei Jin saw that Xiao He's strength had reached such a terrifying level and wanted to discuss it with him. In the end, Xiao He suddenly slammed the spirit fruit in his hand, smashing the table into pieces. His body unintentionally emitted a terrifying aura that made Lei Jin feel suffocated. He couldn't move even if he wanted to, let alone speak. The fairy plane. Looks like they're courting death. Xiao He snorted angrily, and his body suddenly disappeared. Lei Jin regained his mobility and was immediately shocked. He scanned with his divine sense and was horrified to find that Xiao He had already appeared in the Flame Dragon Holy City's teleportation array. He actually teleported across the Star Sea. Don't activate the teleportation array. Lei Jin was so scared that his face was as white as snow. He immediately sent a message, but it was too late. The super teleportation array was activated, and Xiao He's figure disappeared in the teleportation array. Motherf ****. Lei Jin angrily smashed the table beside him. He really wanted to slap himself. He forgot about Xiao He's unscrupulous nature. The situation was originally complicated. He wanted to discuss it with Xiao He, but in the end, Xiao He directly went to kill. Yao Ji, you're in charge of the divine realm for now. Lei Jin sent a message to Yao Ji and immediately teleported away. He only arrived outside the Flame Dragon Holy City after half a day. Outside the city, Yu Qingcheng and the others were already alarmed by Xiao He's aura. When they saw Lei Jin teleporting over with a black face, they immediately surrounded him and wanted to ask about the situation. Teleport. Lei Jin did not say a word. He flew to a medium teleportation array at the side. The super teleportation array was activated by Xiao He, and it needed a month to store energy. He could only go to the intermediate teleportation array. Firework flew to the teleportation array and asked in surprise, Father, what happened? Where did Xiao He go? The teleportation array had already lit up. Lei Jin's figure disappeared in the teleportation array, leaving behind a sentence that shocked all the women. Xiao He killed his way to the fairy plane. I have to chase after him immediately. Sigh. Something big is going to happen. If Xiao He kills everyone in the fairy plane, the divine realm will be finished. Chapter 1429. You haven't found them? Or are you deliberately hiding it? Let me tell you, Yao Yao is the precious daughter of great Emperor Xiao He. If anything happens to them, I can't guarantee that not a single person in your plane will survive. I'm sure you've all heard of Great Emperor Xiao Hei's methods. In a secondary plane of the fairy plane, the beast god roared furiously. For decades, Yao Mu and Yao Concubine had sent people to search for them, but there had been no news. How could he not be worried? God World Monarch, I know what you're saying. I have absolutely no intention of delaying. I've already mobilized more people to search the fairy plane and all the material planes. There are so many planes, but I can't find them in a short time. There's nothing I can do. You also know that Yao Mu has personally gone to deal with this matter. Yao Concubine was also anxious. It wasn't that they didn't know about those two noble girls. Last time, it was because of those two girls that the God World Emperor had personally attacked the fairy plane. That terrifying Great Emperor Xiao Hei had even killed 2 9th-grade Supremes and more than 100,000 powerhouses in the Dark Night Plane. They dared to hide news of Yi Qinghan, but they really didn't dare to touch those two girls. If that Great Emperor Xiao Hei attacked the fairy plane, it would be a catastrophe for the fairy plane. However, the two girls had clearly entered the Fey plane, and the flying phoenix was still floating outside the material plane. The Fey patrols had clearly seen the two humans enter the material plane, but when they looked for them, they couldn't find them at all. During that period of time, dozens of people had been teleported out of that material plane. They had already investigated and found out that there were indeed 2 unidentified girls. What made Yao Mu and Yao Concubine extremely strange was that these 2 girls could actually disguise themselves as the fairy race. Later, after asking the beast god, they learned that the 2 girls had learned a very mysterious secret technique, the Phantom of the Dark Night transformation. It could change their appearance and the attributes of their bodies. Now, the 2 of them were even more anxious. Not only were they afraid that these 2 noble young ladies would be killed by the Fae, but they were also afraid that these 2 people would sneak into Yao Fei's palace. If they woke up Yi Qinghan would injure them in a fit of rage. Killing them was a small matter, but if they didn't care about the fairy plane, then it would be troublesome. Therefore, Yao Concubine stayed here to calm the beast god down while Yao Mu personally went to deal with this matter. However, it had been a few decades, and they still hadn't found it. Even Yao Concubine was starting to feel afraid. Report. It was at this point that one of the demon folk flew in like lightning, his face a mask of terror. Trembling, he shouted, "Not good. Not good. That madman from the god world is here. He's already killed tens of thousands of people, and he's on his way here. He says something happened to his daughter, and that he's going to wipe out the entire demon folk plane." What? Who is so daring? Yao Concubine was shocked. Her face was filled with killing intent as she looked at the beast god. The beast god was also startled. He grabbed the messenger and asked, "Is it a white-clothed young man? He can turn into a blue dragon and swallow martial artists?" Yes, but he didn't swallow. With just a glance, he killed countless of our people." The messenger immediately nodded, his eyes filled with fear. The beast god's eyes revealed a look of ecstasy, but then he became incomparably nervous. He angrily shouted at Yao Concubine, "Great Emperor Xiao Hei has left seclusion. This is bad. Yao Concubine, immediately take me to stop him. Send a message to Yao Mu and tell him to immediately find the 2 young ladies. Otherwise, even I cannot stop Great Emperor Xiao Hei. All life in your plane will be killed by him. Great Emperor Xiao Hei." Yao Concubine's body trembled. She immediately sent a message to Yao Mu. She and the beast god were led by a scout squad, flying into the endless void. In the endless void, a white-robed man slowly flew forward. Although his speed was incomparably slow, to the Fae around him, it was already terrifying. If your 9th grade Supreme doesn't appear in half an incense stick's time, then this great emperor will directly slaughter his way to your Fey plane. Lei Zhen naturally couldn't catch up to Xiao Hei. Xiao Hei hadn't completely gone berserk yet, so he flew to the Fey plane and began a massacre. After killing tens of thousands of patrolling Fey with a few glances, he immediately sent a message back. All the Fey felt a chill run down their spines. This great emperor of the divine realm was too terrifying. Although many of them didn't know who Xiao Hei was, they had all heard of his vicious reputation. In particular, Xiao He hadn't revealed the slightest bit of his aura, nor had he done anything. With just a few glances, tens of thousands of Fae immediately floated into the air, their divine crystals automatically flying out, and they immediately died. This sort of method caused even their souls to tremble. Whoosh! In less than half an incense stick's time, countless Fae flew over from the distance. The Fae all had wings. After reaching the God Emperor realm, they could form a strange air current around their body, allowing them to dodge the attacks of the space blade's shattering current. Greetings, Demon Concubine Queen. When the Fae saw a beautiful woman at the forefront, they all breathed a sigh of relief and all knelt down to pay their respects. Great Emperor Xiao He. The beast god and demon concubine stood side by side. When they saw Xiao He in the distance, their withered bark-like old faces immediately glowed with a hint of spring. Their bodies turned into afterimages as they flew toward Xiao He. Beast god? Where are Yao Yao and Zishi? Where's boss? When Xiao He saw that it was the beast god, the killing intent in his eyes disappeared, and he immediately asked. The beast god hurriedly explained, Yao Yao and Zishi used the ghost transformation to disguise themselves as Fae. Right now, they have sneaked into the Fae plane. Their people have been looking for them for dozens of years, but they still haven't found them. As for Little Han, they said he's not in the Fae plane. Looking for them for dozens of years and still haven't found them? Humph. Xiao He snorted coldly and didn't pay any more attention to the beast god. His gaze suddenly shot toward Demon Concubine. Two golden rays of light flashed, and then Xiao He's body turned into an afterimage. In the next second, he had already appeared in front of Demon Concubine. He easily stretched out a hand and grabbed Demon Concubine's snow-white neck. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he snorted in an extremely tyrannical manner. If even half a hair on my daughter and niece is lost, all of the Fae race will be buried with them. Hiss, sounds of cold air being sucked in resounded in the field. Even the beast god was stunned. Demon Concubine was a 9th-grade supreme martial artist, but she had actually been subdued by Xiao He without even realizing it. Capturing alive and killing were two completely different definitions. Moreover, it was a head-on capture that Demon Concubine couldn't resist at all. Just what level had Xiao He's strength reached? The beast god didn't even sense a trace of Xiao He's aura. He felt like a strong man casually grabbing a baby, incomparably casual. The beast god was overjoyed, but he also became worried. He immediately flew over and sent a voice transmission. Xiao He, don't be rash. We don't have the qualifications to attack the Fae plane. If Pan Xing decides to convict us, the immortal realm will be in trouble. Pan Xing? Humph. Xiao He looked into the void in the distance and smiled with incomparable arrogance. He said faintly, Beast God, there's no need to say anything more. I only have my own opinion. Even if Pan Xing wants to kill me, it won't be that easy. Let's go. With that, Xiao He didn't look at the beast god and the Fae anymore. His body turned into lightning and directly flew toward the Fae plane. The beast god's body trembled. It won't be easy for Pan Xing to kill him. At this moment, the beast god felt that he had lived for so many years in vain. His mind was in a mess. He didn't dare to think too much and immediately followed Xiao He toward the Fae plane. All the Fae were scared silly, but no one dared to make a move. As they followed Xiao He and the beast god toward the Fae plane, they quickly used the Fae race's special communication method to send a message to the Fae plane. Chapter 1430. What? Yao Concubine was captured. Great Emperor Xiao He from the Divine World is flying towards the Fae plane. Yao Mu was in the Fae plane at this time. When he received the message from his subordinate, his face turned paler than his butt. His body trembled and he nearly fell to the ground. What should I do? What should I do? Yao Mu was completely frightened. Xiao He's ferocious name had long resounded throughout the Fae plane. He was a powerhouse whose strength was comparable to the Great Emperor of the Divine World, and he was even more unreasonable than the Great Emperor of the Divine World. He was a complete madman. The last time his daughter was captured, the Fey Plane had lost 3 ninth-grade supreme beings. Would another 3 die this time? Were there any other powerhouses in the Fey Plane? Find the king? Find the great emperor of the divine world? Yao Mu immediately dismissed this thought in his mind. If the great emperor of the divine world knew that he had concealed the fact that he was in the Fey Plane, he would not kill him. Even if he left in a rage, the Fey Plane would be attacked by the Bat Blood race, and their plane would be finished. It didn't matter if he died, but the Fey could not be exterminated. It was just that, if he didn't find them, what if the great Emperor Xiao He of the divine world could not find his daughter and began a massacre in the Fey Plane? Report. Just as Yao Mu was panicking and at a loss, a Fey flew in from outside and said happily, "King Yao Mu, you found them. Did you find the 2 young ladies from the divine world?" Found them? Where? It was as if Yao Mu had heard the sound of nature. He said in ecstasy, "Quick, take me there. Quick." They wanted to sneak into the king's palace, but they were discovered by the guards. They have been captured. That Fey immediately brought Yao Mu to Yao Fei's palace. Sure enough, they found a group of guards holding 2 female Fey captive. The 2 female Fey had faces full of anger as they glared at the people around them. "Untie them, untie them. Who allowed you to beat people? Which bastard did it? Stand up." Yao Mu had the strength of a 9th-grade supreme being. His divine sense was extremely sharp, and he immediately discovered that the 2 were different from the Fey. He saw that their faces and bodies were covered in wounds. Thinking of Xiao He's words, he immediately roared in anger. 3 7th-grade war gods of the demon clan immediately stood up and said, "King Yao Mu, these 2 were trying to sneak into the king's palace. It was the 3 of us who captured them. Tie them up. Tie them up. How could they treat our guests like this?" Yao Mu immediately sent out a slap, and the 3 of them were swept away. The guards immediately chased after the 3 people and tied them up. Yao Mu revealed a flattering smile. He turned to the 2 captured female Fey and softly said, "Are you 2 the demon devourer Yao and Miss Yizishi?" Yao Mu has already taught them a lesson. "I apologize to you." Sure enough, it was Yao Yao and Yizishi. Yao Yao rubbed her body and let out a muffled groan. She glared at Yao Mu and said, "Humph, at least you're sensible. Go and invite my uncle out. He's the emperor of the god realm. I want to see uncle. I know uncle is inside." Yao Mu's pupils shrank, but his expression didn't change as he said, "Great emperor of the divine realm? Why would the emperor of the god world be in the fairy plane? Miss, you must be joking. Humph, don't try to deceive me." Yao Yao's quick-witted eyes turned and she proudly said, "We've been lurking in your plane for dozens of years. We've already investigated clearly. Tens of thousands of years ago, uncle and your king came to the fairy plane and finally entered this palace." Yao Mu laughed mischievously and suddenly transmitted his voice. "Ha, that's fake. Actually, the king and your emperor were impersonated by me. It was only to calm the army's morale. But about this, please don't tell anyone." Following that, Yao Mu didn't wait for the 2 of them to speak. His huge aura pressed down and lifted the 2 of them. He flew out of the plane and straight into the endless void. In the endless void, a white shadow streaked across the vast sky at a frightening speed. Behind him, the beast god madly chased after him. Behind him was a group of fairy clansmen. The fairy clansmen cultivated the laws of the wind and were originally fast, but compared to Xiao He's beast god, they were simply not enough. The fairy plane was already in sight, but Xiao He's body suddenly stopped. Thousands of kilometers ahead, countless fairy clansmen stood in the void. At the forefront was Yao Mu, who had a flattering smile on his face. Who else could it be but Yao Yao and Yi Zishi beside him? "Yao Yao, Zishi, come here." Xiao He coldly swept his gaze over the fairy clansmen and finally landed on Yao Yao and Yi Zishi's faces. He revealed a doting expression. "Father. Uncle Xiao He." Yao Yao and Yi Zixi faces were full of joy when they saw that the pressure Yao Mu had enveloped them had disappeared. They immediately flew toward Xiao He. They flew to Xiao He's side, but the two of them were somewhat ashamed. They didn't dare to look at Xiao He for fear that he would blame them. Beast God, come here. Bring the two of them into the Beast God Hall. Xiao He didn't even look at the two of them. He directly shouted at the Beast God behind him. The Beast God was still hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. He immediately took out the Beast God Hall, flew over, and took the two girls into the Beast God Hall. Humph. Only then did Xiao He look at the Yao concubine in his hands. His eyes were filled with faint killing intent. He said coldly, "Didn't you say that you couldn't find her after searching for decades? How did you find her now? Is it fun to lie to this emperor?" No, no, the Yao concubine felt the cold killing intent in Xiao He's eyes and cried out in fear. But just as she let out a sound, her pupils suddenly started to enlarge. Then, her body started to soften. A resplendent and gorgeous divine crystal quietly flew out from her lower abdomen. Xiao He then patted it and shot it into the beast god's hands behind him. Oh, everyone was stunned. They were shocked by Xiao He's method of killing people invisibly. They were shocked by Xiao He's ruthlessness. Without saying a word, he easily crushed a 9th-grade supreme martial artist to death. Xiao He, don't be impulsive. The beast god trembled and pinched his nose. It was unknown whether it was because he was nervous, excited, or afraid. Xiao He didn't act impulsively. Otherwise, these people in front of him would all be dead. He fixed his gaze on the trembling Yao Mu and asked, "Where is my boss?" Xiao He's question was very good. Just now, the Yao concubine had lied to him and ended up being crushed by him. Now, he was asking Yao Mu. Yao Mu didn't dare to tell the truth. If he said that Yi Qinghan was in the fairy plane, wouldn't that be lying to him again? Yao Mu's eyes narrowed. He gritted his teeth and said, "My lord, the emperor of the realm of gods is indeed not in the fairy plane. It's useless even if you kill all of us." Huh? Do you really think that this emperor doesn't dare to kill you? Little Black's eyes were cold and gloomy. His eyes swept over all of the Fae. The tens of thousands of Fae powerhouses suddenly felt a bone-chilling cold envelop their bodies. They didn't even dare to breathe. All of them shivered as they looked at Little Black, clenching their teeth as they stubbornly endured. The atmosphere was incomparably dignified and tense. It was like a room filled with gas. As long as there was the slightest spark, there would be a huge explosion. The beast god was very anxious. Although Xiao He said that he could exchange a few blows with Pan Xing, the beast god didn't dare to imagine what the consequences would be if he really faced Pan Xing. The realm of gods didn't have the qualifications to attack the fairy plane. It was fine to kill a few people like Yi Qinghan last time. If Xiao He was angry and really wiped out all life in the fairy plane, it would definitely incur Pan Xing's wrath. At that moment, the beast god's expression changed several times. Finally, he thought of a way and hurriedly transmitted his voice, "Xiao He, don't worry about the matters here. Since Yao Yao and Xiao He have returned safely, you should go back to the realm of gods first. Zhu Yi and the other 4 have led a team to the dimensional battlefield. It's very likely that they are all dead now. The realm of gods is about to be defeated. You should go to the dimensional battlefield immediately to save them." Chapter 1431. Planar Battlefield? The killing intent on Xiao He's body abruptly vanished. Yi Qinghan was powerful, so Xiao He had never been worried about his safety. The matter regarding the dimensional battlefield was indeed urgent. Xiao He knew very well that when he was present during the last dimensional battlefield, so many people from the immortal world had died. Now that he was not around, it was very likely that Zhu Yi and the others would die in battle. Xiao He did not care whether the others were dead or alive. But Zhu Yi and Ice Queen were Yi Qinghan's women, so Xiao He had to pay attention. He asked right away, "I can still enter the planar battlefield?" "Of course you can. You can enter before the great battle. After the great battle, everyone will be teleported into the great battlefield." Even if you enter, it will be useless. There are still a few years left. We should be able to make it in time. The beast god heaved a sigh of relief. If Xiao He could return and enter the dimensional battlefield, not only would he be a great help to Zhu Yi and the others, but he would also be able to prevent himself from impulsively destroying the fairy dimension. Alright then, I'll go back first and immediately enter the planar battlefield. You bring them back slowly. Xiao He was always quick and decisive in his actions. He coldly glanced at the Fey powerhouses, causing them to tremble once more. Then, his body turned into an afterimage, vanishing in front of everyone in a second. Phew, after Xiao He left, all of the Fey let out a sigh of relief, feeling as if they had just survived a calamity. Now, even Yao Mu no longer had any hostility towards the immortal realm. Xiao He was simply too powerful. He was many times more powerful than Yao Fei, or Yi Qinghan. Yao Mu firmly believed that Xiao He could easily kill him with a single glance. It would be as easy as stepping on an ant. How could a martial artist cultivate to such a level? Could it be that he had a spiritual body of heaven like Yao Fei, or? Yao Mu couldn't figure it out, and he couldn't summon any will to fight either. Fortunately, Xiao He had left, and the beast god had also entered the War Imperial Palace and soared into the sky, returning to the immortal realm. You two girls, it's not that I want to scold you, but you know that I almost died because of you. Is it going to create a huge disaster? Yao Yao, don't you know your father's temper? If I hadn't used the dimensional war to pull your father back, the fairy plane would have been finished. Do you know that? The fairy plane is finished, and the god world is finished. You don't know about Pan Xing, do you? That's the overseer of Plate Realm, the divine emperor supreme. He was the one who destroyed the 10 ancient races. How powerful are the 10 ancient Eras clans? At that time, there were more than 29th grade supreme martial artists, and Jerome's strength had also reached beyond 9th grade supreme martial artist. What was the ending? Total annihilation. No one survived. The god realm does not have the qualifications to attack the fairy plane. If your father had destroyed the fairy plane just now, Pan Xing would definitely be furious. Your father would have to bear the wrath of Pan Xing, and everyone in the god realm would have died. The beast god temple flew towards the demonic plane. Once the beast god entered, he immediately reprimanded the two girls. As the ancestor of Yi Qinghan, he was greatly respected by Yi Qinghan and had a very high status in the god realm. The two girls didn't dare to make a sound after being reprimanded. The beast god looked at the two frightened girls and felt that his words were too harsh. He shook his head and left after saying, "Think about it carefully. Come and talk to me after you've thought it through. Otherwise, your mother will punish you when you return. I won't help you." Yao Yao and Yi Zishi were originally very nervous after being reprimanded by the beast god. They didn't expect the matter to be so serious. Hearing the beast god's last sentence, the two girls' eyes lit up at the same time. I won't help you. Didn't this mean that as long as the two of them admitted their mistakes with a good attitude, thought through the seriousness of the matter, and coaxed the beast god would help them when they returned? The beast god's position was unique. As long as she spoke, Li Shuai, and fireworks wouldn't be punished too heavily, right? Even Yu Qingxing wouldn't speak again to punish them, right? Immediately, the two of them whispered to each other. Then, they stayed in the beast god's side hall obediently and pretended to meditate in seclusion. 5 days later, the two of them walked into the main hall pitifully. With a plop, they knelt on the ground and cried bitterly as they began to admit their mistakes. They pretended to be very sincere, and the beast god didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The beast god saw that the two girls were crying more and more emotionally. It was earth-shattering. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, all right. I'll speak up for you when we return. However, confinement is unavoidable this time. Don't pretend to be pitiful in front of me. Thank you, Ancestor. I knew that Ancestor is the best. Yao Yao immediately smiled through her tears. Yi Zishi also stopped crying. The two of them, one on the left and one on the right, shook the beast god's arm affectionately. They looked very cute. You too. The beast god smiled bitterly and helplessly. Yi Zishi smiled sweetly. Her exquisite face was exactly the same as the fireworks. She was extremely beautiful. With a sigh, she said, "Ancestor, my father is in the Demoness Plain. We almost found him, but he was captured in the end. What a pity." The beast god was smiling bitterly at first, but when he heard this, he immediately frowned and said in an extremely serious tone, Little Han is in the Demoness Plain? You're not lying to me?" Yao Yao's quick-witted eyes turned a few times. She continued, "Of course I'm not lying to you. We used the ghost transformation to hide in the Demoness Plain for several decades and investigated everything clearly." Humph. That 9th grade supreme martial artist from the Demoness race still wanted to lie to us. At that time, their king and uncle returned to the Demoness Plain together and shook the Demoness Plain. Countless people witnessed it. How could such a big matter be concealed? That bastard Yao Mu, he deceived me so bitterly. After listening to what Yao Yao and Yi Zishi had seen and heard all these years, the beast god stood up in a violent rage. His withered face trembled, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. "I'll send you to the Dark Night Plain first, then I'll immediately go to the Demoness Plain. If Yao Mu dares to stop me again, I'll tear him apart. This time, I'll definitely find little Han." The beast god paced back and forth in the main hall. After a moment, he made a decision. No matter what the reason was, since he knew Yi Qinghan's confirmed location, he had to go see him. The beast divine palace streaked across the sky and rushed to the Dark Night Plain at the fastest speed possible. A month later, they arrived at the Dark Night Plain. The beast god threw Yao Yao and Yi Zishi into the Dark Night Plain and had Xiang Di immediately escort them back to the immortal realm. Then, he controlled the beast divine palace and flew toward the Demoness Plain. The immortal realm was already in complete chaos. The beast god went to the Demoness Plain and had Lei Jin keep watch. Then, Lei Jin went to the Demoness Plain and had Yao Ji keep watch. Xiao He furiously killed his way to the Demoness Plain. The immortal realm didn't have an expert with enough weight to keep watch, so everyone was anxious and panicked. Then, the most frightening thing happened. In the Heavenly Awakening continent, the people of the Mo clan hurried to the Supreme Island. Their faces were filled with grief and fear as they told Yao Ji something. Mo Shanghuang's soul jade slip had shattered. The monarch of the Heavenly Awakening continent, Mo Shanghuang, was dead. A few days later, a group of people came out of the beast divine realm. Their heads were all wrapped in white cloth, and their faces were filled with grief. Yi Feihu's soul jade slip had also shattered. Yi Feihu was dead. The entire immortal realm was shocked. Mo Shanghuang had just broken through to 9th grade supreme martial artist, and Yi Feihu had broken through to 9th grade supreme martial artist many years ago. The immortal realm had lost 2 9th grade supreme martial artists at once. What had happened in the plain battlefield? What kind of blame was the immortal realm's army suffering? No one knew, but countless people were extremely terrified. The great emperor wasn't here, and Emperor Xiao He wasn't here. There wasn't a single expert keeping watch in the immortal realm. Everyone was very afraid. Before long, Emperor Xiao He finally returned, and everyone felt a little more at ease. However, when Xiao He heard that Yi Feihu and Mo Shanghuang were dead, he immediately slapped the star sea's seawater hundreds of thousands of meters high. Then, without saying a word, he had Yao Ji teleport him into the plain battlefield with boundless killing intent. The people of the immortal realm were on tenterhooks again. Emperor Xiao He had such a temperament. Although his strength had become extremely terrifying, so terrifying that it was beyond everyone's imagination. Who knew what would happen if he entered the plain battlefield with such an awe-inspiring killing intent? Chapter 1432. Why? An extremely puzzled voice suddenly rang out in the War Emperor Palace. Yi Qinghan's expression was solemn, his eyes filled with confusion and doubt. Why is there a bottleneck in the ultimate mystery of fire? They are all basic elemental mysteries, but metal, wood, water, and earth don't have any bottlenecks. Why is there a bottleneck in the ultimate mystery of fire? This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. This time, Yi Qinghan's comprehension speed of the laws of fire was faster than ever, but something strange happened. He was stuck at the last step. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth. These were the 5 basic elemental laws, the most basic elements of the world. In ancient China, the 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other, forming a cycle of reincarnation. Yi Qinghan had a very strange feeling in his heart. As long as he could comprehend the 5 elements, his strength would undergo an earth-shattering change. Now that he was stuck at the last step, why wasn't he anxious? Should I train in the Tao of Heaven? After thinking about it for a few days, Yi Qinghan still couldn't figure it out. In the end, he decisively gave up and set his sights on the supreme secret Tao of Heaven. The Tao of Heaven takes from surpluses and makes up for deficiencies. Thus, the void triumphs over the real, and the deficiency triumphs over the excess. The meaning is profound, the logic is profound, and the meaning is profound. The division of heaven and earth, the alignment of yin and yang, the appearance of change, the omens of life and death, the same as the ruins, the same without planning, the same without making an appointment, the same with the bright and 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 the same. If the secrets of the heavens are revealed, the profound knowledge. Yi Qinghan opened the Heavenly Tao's secret technique scroll and carefully read it. The secret technique didn't seem very complicated to Yi Qinghan. After reading it a few times, he easily understood it. After understanding it, Yi Qinghan's brows furrowed as he muttered to himself. Slowly, he closed his eyes and naturally entered a meditative state. Unbeknownst to Yi Qinghan, his body suddenly lit up with a gentle radiance. The radiance grew brighter and brighter until the entire side hall was lit up. The dazzling radiance caused the stone tablets in the side hall to be unable to be seen clearly. All that could be seen was a sheet of golden light. Boom! After Yi Qinghan went into seclusion for a month, the War Emperor Palace suddenly trembled. The space was shaken, and the 2 people who were in seclusion were shaken out. What happened? The Blood Bat tribe is attacking? Yao Fei was startled awake, but the first thing she saw was Yi Qinghan floating in the air. His entire body was like a true Buddha, and he glowed with a golden light. The aura emanating from his body caused her to feel an immense pressure, and she felt that he could not be defeated. The beast god and Yao Mu in the palace also looked at Yi Qinghan, who was in mid-air, with their mouths wide open. After the beast god sent the 2 of them back to the dark night plane, he immediately rushed to the fairy plane at full speed. Without wasting any time, he headed straight for the fairy plane. Yao Mu wanted to stop him, but the beast deity only said, "You dare to stop me? Tell Great Emperor Xiao He to come and exterminate the fairy race immediately." Yao Mu immediately withered, and he obediently followed the beast god to Yao Fei's palace. Xiao He completely scared Yao Mu out of his wits. If he continued to be stubborn, the fairy race might be exterminated before the Blood Bat tribe could even attack. Moreover, the beast god was not weaker than him. Even if he wanted to stop him, it would be very difficult. In the end, the space shook and the 2 people out. However, Yi Qinghan's appearance scared the 3 of them. What was Yi Qinghan cultivating? Why didn't the space shake wake him up? He was even emitting such a terrifying aura and golden light. Had he become a Buddha and a true god? The 3 of them looked for a while, but they could not see anything. Yao Fei woke up with a start, but she did not dare to disturb Yi Qinghan. She glanced at Yao Mu and the beast god before walking into a side palace. After entering the side palace, Yao Fei nodded at the beast god in a friendly manner before saying, "Yao Mu, what happened? The Blood Bat tribe did not attack. Where is the Yao concubine? This is someone from the god realm. Did something happen in the god realm?" "Humph." The beast god coldly snorted, not saying anything. Yao Mu fell to his knees, his face bitter. "My Majesty, Yao Mu has sinned. The Yao concubine is dead? The Yao concubine is dead? What happened?" Yao Fei was startled. Although she did not have any feelings for Yao Fei, she was still a supreme powerhouse of the fairy race. My Majesty, Yao Mu has sinned. You had me send a message to the god realm. I thought that the blood bat tribe would immediately attack, so Yao Mu knew that he had been exposed, and there was no way to hide it. He could only tell the truth. Because the beast god was here, he did not dare to say a single lie. Bastard. The Yao concubine was killed by an idiot like you. The more Yao Fei heard, the uglier her expression became. Finally, she shot out a wind blade that smashed Yao Mu away, creating a large hole in the palace wall. Ridiculous. What a joke. The beast god suddenly spoke. He looked resentfully at Yao Mu, who was vomiting blood, and said, "The blood bat tribe participated in the last dimensional war." The people who participated in the dimensional war came back and said that the blood bat tribe suffered heavy losses, and their army was almost completely wiped out. Because you were worried that the fairy plane would be destroyed, you purposely deceived the arch. Do you know how many people died in the last dimensional war because the arch did not participate? Nearly 1 million of the most elite Yi family soldiers died, and countless monarch-level powerhouses died. Decades ago, the planar war started again, but the great emperor was still unaware of it. If all of our experts die in the planar war this time, the great emperor will definitely be furious and kill everyone in your plane. This, Yao Fei, panicked. She did not expect that the divine realm would suffer such a huge loss because of Yao Mu's foolish decision. She was a pure person. She had forced Yi Qinghan to stay. If Yi Qinghan found out that so many people had died in the divine realm, she did not dare to imagine how furious Yi Qinghan would be. "Why don't I go and wake up the arch now and return immediately?" Yao Fei, cried out helplessly. "Please don't." Yao Fei's words frightened the beast god. He hurriedly said, "Didn't you see that the arch is cultivating? Furthermore, such a phenomenon has occurred. Perhaps this is the most important moment of his cultivation. Just wait. The arch Xiaohe has probably already gone to the dimensional war. You better pray that they are safe in the dimensional war this time. All right. I will wait for him to come out of seclusion. I will take full responsibility for Yao Mu's mistakes. Whether he wants to beat or kill me, I will accept it." Yao Fei said through gritted teeth. She entered the main hall and sat down in front of Yi Qinghan. Then, she sat cross-legged and began to cultivate. The beast god went in to take a look. In the end, he felt a little awkward sitting with Yao Fei, so he retreated. He closed his eyes in the side hall and waited for Yi Qinghan to wake up. Yi Qinghan did not cultivate in seclusion for too long. A year was not enough. The halo around his body gradually faded, and his eyes suddenly opened. He stood in midair and muttered to himself in a daze, "That's strange. Why was my comprehension of the heavenly Tao mystic technique so smooth? I'm about to achieve phenomenal success. But I'm still stuck at the last moment. Strange. This is really strange. What? You're about to achieve phenomenal success in the heavenly Tao mystic technique?" Yao Fei had already woken up when Yi Qinghan opened his eyes. When she heard him talking about the heavenly Tao mystic technique, she immediately opened the restrictions of the main hall. At the same time, her aura surged and enveloped the entire room. This was to prevent outsiders from hearing the supreme heavenly Tao mystic technique. When she heard Yi Qinghan's words, she asked in disbelief, "The arch of the divine realm, are you sure that you have already cultivated the heavenly Tao mystic technique to phenomenal success?" "Of course. Why would I lie to you?" Yi Qinghan was clearly still in a state of confusion as he answered subconsciously. Yao Fei shook her head, still in disbelief. "How is that possible? You are not an ethereal body of heaven. There is no way you can cultivate the heavenly Tao mystic technique. This is what the first sentence of the first scroll of the heavenly Tao mystic technique says. You are not an ethereal body of heaven. There's such a thing? No wonder you were so straightforward when you gave me the heavenly Tao mystic technique." Yi Qinghan was speechless. Yao Fei had opened the restrictions, but he was still confused about the ultimate law of fire and the stuck heavenly Tao mystic technique. He was not in the mood to use his divine sense to scan the surroundings. The beast god was in the side hall, but he did not even notice. He thought for a moment and sighed. It's one thing for the ultimate law of fire to be stuck, but the heavenly Tao mystic technique is also stuck. Is this darn heavens purposely making things difficult for me? Yao Fei, help me think of a way to break through the bottleneck. This young master hates bottlenecks the most. If I am stuck for tens of thousands of years or even hundreds of thousands of years, my head will explode. A way? Yao Fei's eyes lit up. She lowered her head and muttered to herself for a long time. Then, she suddenly raised her head. Her face was as red as fire, and even her ears and neck were red. Her watery eyes were filled with embarrassment. She stared at Yi Qinghan for a long time. Finally, under his astonished gaze, she tugged at the robe around her waist, revealing a snow-white body that made one's blood boil. She closed her eyes, and her breathing quickened. She bit her lips and said in a voice that only mosquitoes could hear, "Fei, can help you break through the heavenly Tao mystic technique's bottleneck. That is, I want Fei. Fei has the ethereal body of heaven, and I can transfer the ethereal chi of heaven to you. However, you must promise me that you will protect Fei, and the Fei plane in the future." This, Yi Qinghan swallowed and rubbed his hands together. He was a little hesitant, but his gaze swept over Yao Fei's perfect body. Finally, he looked at Yao Fei and said reluctantly, "Are you sure you can help me break through? If I can't break through, this young master will suffer a great loss." Chapter 1433. Greetings, Great Emperor Xiaohe. The teleportation formation in the lava canyon suddenly lit up, scaring the millions of celestial world soldiers, Jida, and the others. When they saw a figure in snow-white robes proudly appear in the teleportation formation, their bodies began to tremble, and they all dropped to their knees to kowtow. "Why are you here? Where is Ice Queen Zhu Yi? Jida, come over and talk." Xiaohe's eyes were like lightning, and his body was filled with killing intent. Yi Feihu and Mo Shanghuang were dead, and Xiaohe was completely enraged. If anything happened to Zhu Yi and Ice Queen, Yi Qinghan would be extremely sad when he returned. Xiaohe didn't want Yi Qinghan to be sad the most. So, whoever wanted Zhu Yi and Bing Mei's lives had to step over his, Xiaohe's, corpse. "Xiaohe, they are in the Demon Mountain. Ice Queen Zhu Yi asked me to lead everyone to stand guard here and wait for the final battle. Xiaohe, the Supreme God Emperor changed the rules for this dimensional war again. Our 8 planes must accumulate 10 million points to win." Pan Xing. Xiaohe's eyes turned even colder, and he looked at the sky in the distance. He humphed coldly, "Pan Xing, right? You better not force me. Otherwise, even if you are a Supreme God Emperor, I will twist your head off." Hiss, Jida, a few 9th grade overlords, and the millions of celestial world soldiers shivered, and they looked at Xiaohe in disbelief. Who knew that Xiaohe's body would turn into a shadow, and he would disappear in front of everyone's eyes? In the next second, he appeared on the Demon Mountain. This. Jida's lips trembled, and he looked around in fear. He shrunk his neck, and he felt his body turn cold. He looked at the people around him, and he realized that many of them had pale faces, and they were terrified. Great Emperor Xiaohe actually dared to say that he would twist Pan Xing's head off in the dimensional war? Was he going to defy the heavens? Everyone looked at each other and looked at the sky. For some reason, they had a feeling that something big was about to happen, something earth-shattering. In the passageway of the Devil Mountain, 3 figures were madly fleeing for their lives. The 3 of them were in an incomparably miserable state, like stray dogs. Their faces were filled with despair. Behind the 3 of them were 7 to 8 strong beasts that chased them crazily. If it wasn't for Ice Queen scattering snow to slow down the speed of the beasts, the 3 of them who were injured would have been caught and ripped into pieces. There's a teleportation formation in the passage ahead on the left. Quick, quick, quick. Zhu Yi roared. Her hair was disheveled, and her voice was hoarse. Her face and body were covered in blood, and she no longer had the noble temperament of a queen. The eyes of Hidden Ruler and Ice Queen, who were also covered in blood, lit up. They sped up and turned into 3 streaks of red lightning that dashed forwards. F***ck, they escaped. It's a pity to kill one. A divine world plane? Humph. Next time we meet them, we will kill them all. The beasts behind started to roar. They could actually speak human language. These beasts were like giant mammoths. They had a single horn on their heads, and their heads were really huge. Their limbs were thick and strong, and they walked like the wind. They were like heavy tanks and were really terrifying. In the other tunnel, Zhu Yi and Ice Queen exchanged glances with one another. Their eyes were filled with despair. Zhu Yi was shocked, and she kept on shaking her head and muttering, "Impossible. It's impossible for them to continuously face experts. This doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense." There were still a few years left, and Zhu Yi was sure to surrender. She was prepared to stay here for a few years, teleport to the battlefield, and defend for a month before surrendering right away. Who knew? They didn't even stay for half a year before the dragon men coincidentally found them. The 5 of them started to flee. Then, coincidentally, they started to encounter powerful planes that were defeated one after another. Mo Shanghuang died when he fought with the spiritual beings. A few days ago, Yi Feihu was smashed into pieces by the destructive power of the mammoth beast race to save Zhu Yi. In a short time, they actually faced 4 strong armies. This wasn't normal, it was really not normal. A poignant smile appeared on Zhu Yi's face. The moment Yi Feihu sacrificed his life to save her, her heart was already broken. She was already dead. She looked at the dark tunnel in a daze. She didn't even have the strength to run anymore. Blood flowed, but she didn't care. Her lips were filled with bitterness, and she didn't say a word. She was as silent as a corpse. Zhu Yi, you have to pull yourself together. We still have the Emperor. We still have Xiao He, we won't lose. Ice Queen's heart ached as she used God power to heal Zhu Yi. She said softly. Her voice was really soft, but it was really firm. Emperor. Zhu Yi's eyes lit up, and a sweet smile appeared on her face. However, it slowly dimmed down. It is useless, it is useless. Pan Xing wants to play us to death, he wants to play our 8 planes to death. This time, none of us will be able to walk out. All of us will die, all of us will die, haha. The hidden sovereign's bloodied face was filled with shock as he looked at the deranged Zhu Yi. Thinking about it, along with the weird things that happened during the last few planar wars, he felt that what Zhu Yi said made sense. Ice Queen thought back to the last planar war. The God World army was suddenly surrounded and attacked by a few planes. She also thought back to how they faced so many strong armies. Once or twice, maybe it was a coincidence, but now they faced it 4 times in a row. The tunnels within Demon Mountain were really complicated, so how could they face them so easily? Pan Xing. Ice Queen thought about a person. She leaned on the wall powerlessly and muttered this suffocating name. Since ancient times, if the ruler wanted the subject to die, the subject had to die. If the God Emperor wanted you to die, could you live alone? Zhu Yi and Ice Queen didn't know, but they both thought about a person. A thin body, a warm smile. The 2 of them started to call out a name. Emperor. Let's go. Half a day later, the 3 of them were leaning against the wall of the passageway, so weak that they looked as if they had passed out. Zhu Yi's eyes snapped open, and with a shout, the 3 of them turned into 3 bolts of lightning that shot toward the other end of the passageway. At the end of the passageway, many gusts of wind stealthily flew over, condensing into 6 monsters in the air. They looked incredibly ugly and did not have limbs. They looked like round balls and had 3 eyes, but they were white and did not have pupils. One of the monsters laughed sinisterly and gave out a hair-raising voice. 3 grade 9 supreme martial artists, Kiki, kill, kill, kill. The 6 monsters cried out at the same time. Their bodies turned into the wind and they were terrifyingly quick as they chased Zhu-Yi and the others. They are so quick. My ice element attacks are useless against them. What about Zhu-Yi? Ice Queen dashed while releasing ice attacks. However, the back of the tunnel was about to be frozen while the few streaks of wind were fine. Both sides were getting closer and closer. Without needing Ice Queen to say anything, Zhu-Yi had sensed it with her divine sense. She didn't say a word and continued to dash for hundreds of thousands of miles. Both sides were tens of thousands of miles apart and in just a moment, they would catch up. Zhu-Yi's body suddenly stopped in an underground square. She sighed helplessly. Her face was calm as she shook her head. Stop running. You can't run anymore. Prepare to fight to the death. Even if I die, I will drag one of you down with me. Okay, fight to the death. The hidden ruler also stopped and stood side by side with Zhu-Yi. His face was calm and his eyes were filled with madness. Let's fight. Ice Queen stopped helplessly. Pan Xing wanted them to die, so who could save them? Emperor, Mei is going to die before you. Ice Queen frowned and a sweet smile appeared at the corner of her lips. When she raised her head, her eyes were filled with determination. The aura around her body started to climb. The three of them were calm and relaxed like they had been freed. They were prepared to go all out and fight to the death. Chapter 1434. Hee, you're not running anymore. Run, continue to run. Several gusts of wind blew over and condensed into 6 monsters in the underground square. 18 pupilless white eyes stared at Zhu-Yi and the other 2 and laughed eerily. Their mouths were wide open, revealing many red tongues and dark green fangs. Soul ball beasts. Their soul attacks are extremely terrifying. We won't be able to survive. Kill as many as you can. Attack. Zhu-Yi's gaze was sinister. The moment the 6 monsters formed, he immediately gave the order to attack. His aura surged. His blood-stained white robe and black hair danced in the wind. His expression was cold. From afar, he looked like a blood demon. 1,000-layer wave whizzed out. Countless ice arrows formed in midair. Countless flying knives shot out from the back of the hidden king. A cold wind blew in the entire underground square, and the nearby passageways trembled slightly. Cracks that looked like scars appeared in the space, and the atmosphere in the square was extremely oppressive. The 3 ninth-grade supreme martial artists attacked at the same time. Their target was the soul ball beast at the front. Hee, you still want to struggle? Brothers, attack. The soul ball beast that was attacked didn't show any signs of fear. It didn't retreat at all. It let out a weird cry. 18 white eyes without pupils lit up at the same time. However, no light pillars shot out. It only caused the space to shake. Bang! The terrifying ice spikes and flying knives in midair suddenly, all collapsed. Ice Queen and the Hidden King held their heads at the same time and rolled on the ground. 6 soul ball beasts that were good at soul attacks attacked one person. Ice Queen and the Hidden King, whose soul wasn't strong, couldn't even hurt the enemy. Zhu-Yi's soul was the strongest. Although his soul ocean was about to be messed up, he still gritted his teeth and controlled the 1,000-layer wave to smash down. Pung! 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 The 1,000-layer wave was more terrifying with each layer. It smashed onto the soul ball beast and the surrounding walls. Instantly, the entire underground square shook. Black mud and stones flew everywhere. The soul ball beast at the front spat out blood and flew backward. However, just as the 1,000-layer wave was about to attack the other 5 soul ball beasts, Zhu-Yi finally couldn't take it anymore. He held his head and knelt down. His face was twisted, but he gritted his teeth and didn't roll on the ground. Zhu-Yi's soul was in a mess. Of course, she could no longer control the 1,000-layered waves. The 1,000-layered waves collapsed in an instant, and the tables were turned. The soul ball beast that was sent flying was a huge ball covered in dark red blood. It flew up, and its white pupilless eyes were filled with killing intent. It fiercely cursed, F***ck, you actually dared to injure me. Continue to attack. I want their souls to completely collapse and die. Let their souls scatter and disappear from this world forever. The space shook and many soul attacks were sent out. Ice Queen and Hidden Ruler rolled even more intensely on the ground. Zhu Yi finally couldn't take it anymore and rolled on the ground. Hee hee, die, all of you die. Give up. Don't resist. Only death awaits you. Hee hee, to be able to die in the hands of the noble soul ball beasts, you should feel honored. The 6 soul ball beasts happily flew around in mid-air, continuously sending out soul attacks. Their mouths opened wide and spat out a foul smell. Within their white pupilless eyes, one could actually see a hint of cruelty. It was obvious that killing 3 grade 9 supreme martial artists made them extremely happy. They won't feel honored. You can't kill them either. To be able to die in the hands of this emperor, you should feel honored. A cold voice suddenly rang out, scaring the 6 soul ball beasts. Their soul attack stopped abruptly. Zhu Yi and the other 2 immediately stopped rolling, but they still held their heads. However, at this moment, the eyes of the 3 were no longer cloudy and confused. Instead, they became extremely clear and bright. Who is it? Scram out. The 6 soul ball beasts scanned with their divine senses. However, they didn't notice anyone or any aura of an expert. Just as they were prepared to continue sending out soul attacks to kill Zhu Yi and the other 2. The 6 soul ball beasts trembled. They turned around at the same time and looked behind them. In the dim tunnel behind them, a white figure suddenly appeared. His face couldn't be seen clearly. What was extremely eye-catching was a pair of cold eyes. A pair of eyes filled with murderous intent. The 6 soul ball beasts were extremely horrified to find that their bodies couldn't move. They could only watch as the white-robed young man walked over slowly. He reached out a hand, a slender hand, and directly grabbed into their bodies. Then, he directly crushed their divine crystals. It was as easy as crushing a few ants to death. Is he still a martial artist? Could he be a divine emperor supreme martial artist? Pan Xing? Before the 6 soul ball beasts' consciousness disappeared, this question still lingered in their minds. 6 pairs of eyes that were like those of dead fish were wide open. They died with grievances. Of course, the white-robed man wasn't Pan Xing. It was Xiao He who rushed over. He easily crushed the 6 soul ball beasts to death. His body floated forward and he shouted coldly, "Explode." The bodies of the 6 soul ball beasts without divine crystals exploded. There wasn't a single drop of blood or flesh splattered. They actually turned into nothingness. It seems like I didn't come too late. Xiao He looked at Zhu Yi, Ice Queen, and Hidden Ruler who stood up with much difficulty. A smile appeared on his dark and sunken face. Zhu Yi wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and smiled bitterly. You are indeed not late, but you really shouldn't have come. Xiao He's brow rose up. Why? Ice Queen and Hidden Ruler smiled bitterly and shook their heads helplessly. Zhu Yi raised her head and closed her eyes in pain. Her body trembled slightly. After a long while, she opened her mouth and said, Pan Xing wants to play us to death. Since you came in, you will only die. So, should you come in? Pan Xing? Xiao He's pupils constricted and his fighting spirit rose. He grinned, then let's play. Who knows who will die? Play you to death? I want to play you to death. Ha 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 ha. At the peak of Mount Pan, a sinister voice rang out, reverberating in the empty Mount Pan. Pan Xing's face was filled with a teasing expression. He looked around Demon Mountain and felt really delighted. Pan Shi had left to find Pan Huang, so he didn't have anything to worry about. Of course, he also wanted to find the person who broke through the barrier in the shortest time possible. Therefore, he was prepared to toy with the people of these 8 planes to death. He used restrictions to secretly change the passageways within Mount Pan, causing the experts of the countless planes to constantly encounter the experts of these 8 planes, causing the experts of these 8 planes to kill each other. He didn't believe it. When all the experts from the 8 planes were about to die, that person would continue to hide. The moment he revealed his strength, he would attack and rip him into pieces. Pan Xing stared at the experts from the 8 planes. Of course, Pan Xing was aware of Little Black's arrival and his words. The mocking expression on his face became even more intense as he smiled and said, "Aberration born from the slaughter god Saber, do you still want to play with me? Don't be anxious. Once I find this person, I will naturally play with you. Let's have some fun. Ha ha ha." Chapter 1435. This is the Holy Spirit Chi. Why does it feel so similar to the power of frost? This kind of power is above all other powers. The Holy Spirit body is really amazing. Yi Qinghan was extremely amazed as he sensed the special power that was coming from Yao Fei's body. Within this coiling world, every type of power was ranked. The power of space, the power of darkness, the power of light, and so on. However, his power of cold was much stronger than these powers. Now, Yi Qinghan had finally discovered a new kind of power that was even stronger than the power of space and the like. Holy Spirit Chi. The mysterious power contained within the Holy Spirit body. Yao Fei was afraid that Yi Qinghan would vent his anger on the fairy plane because of Yao Mu's mistake, or because of that inexplicable feeling in his heart. She resolutely chose to appear before Yi Qinghan and gave most of the Holy Spirit Chi in her body to Yi Qinghan to help him break through the bottleneck of the Heavenly Tao mystic technique. Yi Qinghan's strength had won her over. Yi Qinghan's abnormal speed in comprehending the Heavenly Tao mystic technique had also won her over. She was very clear that she would never be able to defeat Yi Qinghan in this lifetime. The fairy race valued chastity the most. She had been touched by Yi Qinghan. Unless she killed Yi Qinghan, she could only marry him. Otherwise, she could only die. Clearly, Yao Fei did not want to die. She had chosen to marry Yi Qinghan. Just as Yi Qinghan was still marveling at the mysterious power in his body, a white hand that was as white as ivory reached out from behind him. Then, a beautiful face with a hint of charm climbed onto his shoulder. Her face was full of sweetness. Her bare shoulder was round and fair, and it gave off an alluring glow. Yao Fei's eyebrows were full of charm. She opened her tiny mouth and said gently, "Husband, what are you thinking about? Hurry up and break through the Heavenly Tao bottleneck." "All right." Yi Qinghan got rid of the soft and comfortable feeling on his back and immediately went into a meditative state. He began to break through the bottleneck with all his might. His body lit up again, becoming brighter and brighter. It was so bright that there was only golden light left in the hall, and nothing else could be seen. Yao Fei looked at Yi Qinghan with no hint of shock. There was only a deep sense of love in her eyes. She stood up, grabbed a long robe, and covered her perfect body with it. After that, she simply helped Yi Qinghan put on his clothes. Her actions were extremely skillful, just like a well-behaved wife. Time passed bit by bit. 2 years had passed. The beast god outside was burning with anxiety. Yao Fei's restrictions and her powerful strength made it impossible for him to enter the main palace. He continuously smashed his body against the palace walls, but only the light of the restrictions lit up. 89 years had passed since the planar war. Lei Zhen also came, bringing the latest news from the immortal realm. When he heard that Mo Shanghuang, the night-flying tiger, had died in battle, the beast god's heart was bleeding. When he heard that Xiao He had entered the planar war with a boundless killing intent, the beast god was completely flustered. He had a very bad premonition. Something earth-shattering might happen in this planar war. The immortal realm's army might be wiped out. If Yi Qinghan didn't come out of seclusion, everything would be over. Swish. At this thought, the beast god became even more anxious. He waved his hands and formed a huge mutated beast. The moment the mutated beast appeared, the roof of the side palace he was in immediately exploded. Immortal Realm's sovereign, don't be rash. If you do this, the king's palace will be completely destroyed by you." Yao Mu was alarmed by the side, but he didn't dare to stop the beast god. Boom! Before Yao Mu could finish speaking, a huge force suddenly came from the main palace. Yao Fei's incomparably huge palace instantly turned into dust. The force that caused Yao Mu to tremble and bow in worship easily shattered the mutated beast formed by the beast god. The beast god and Yao Mu were also sent flying tens of thousands of meters away. A huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky. Dust and stone fragments flew everywhere in the sky. Within the mushroom cloud, a golden light shot into the sky. The golden light didn't just illuminate the sky of the fairy plain. It also rushed out of the endless void, causing the void within a radius of millions of kilometers to become incomparably dazzling. Boom! In the sky above the fairy plain, countless auspicious clouds suddenly appeared, covering the sky of the fairy plain. Hundreds of huge purple lightning bolts surged inside, roaring soundlessly. The aura coming from inside caused all the fairy tribe members to prostrate on the ground and bow in worship. This, Yao Mu's eyes widened even more than a cow's. He had never seen such a terrifying phenomenon in his life. Moreover, that golden light could actually directly penetrate the protection of the source power outside. In the distance, the beast god looked at the sky in a daze. His old face was already streaming with tears, and he cried out involuntarily, "This phenomenon is 100 times more terrifying than Little Han comprehending the path of supreme martial artist. It seems that Little Han's breakthrough this time is very big, and the world is shaking. I wonder how his current strength compares to Xiao Hei's." A figure suddenly rose from the ruins of the palace. He was dressed strangely. He was only wearing a robe, and half of his body was exposed to bulging muscles. His face was calm, without any fluctuation of emotion. His body emitted a golden light, making people look down on his true body. But one could clearly see a pair of eyes. A pair of eyes just like Xiao Hei's, as deep as the sea, as if it were the endless void. Hundreds of purple lightning bolts crashed down, smashing into Yi Qinghan's body. Yi Qinghan didn't react in the slightest. His eyes were still looking up at the sky, his hands clasped behind his back, and he allowed the most terrifying power of the world to baptize him. Disperse. After a long while, the purple lightning finally stopped, and Yi Qinghan suddenly spoke. He waved his hand lightly, and the countless auspicious clouds in the sky actually dispersed. No one dared to say anything, or even make the slightest sound. At this moment, even the wind stopped blowing, and only the countless pairs of eyes below were left with different expressions. "This is my, Yao Fei's, peerless husband." Yao Fei stood in the ruins, her face filled with sweetness and love. In the span of one night, she had transformed from a young girl into a young woman, as if she had become a completely different person. "I've finally completely comprehended the Tao of heaven." The color of the power of cold changed again, and it was infinitely close to becoming transparent. "My strength has become many times more powerful. However, it's a pity that I still haven't broken through the fire element. There are no black holes or spatial saber streams in the cold realm, and most importantly, there's no origin chi of heaven and earth." A sigh flashed across Yi Qinghan's eyes that were as deep as the sea. He had originally thought that his comprehension of the Tao of heaven had reached great accomplishment, and his Tao of nature had been perfected, so the cold realm would undergo an earth-shattering change. Unexpectedly, the cold realm hadn't changed much. There were still 3 things that he had yet to accomplish that gave him the greatest headache: black holes, spatial saber streams, and origin chi of heaven and earth. Without black holes and spatial saber streams, the space in the cold realm couldn't be considered complete. Most importantly, without origin chi of heaven and earth, the cold realm was dead, and could never become alive. "Little Han, don't be so conflicted. If you continue to be conflicted, the immortal realm will be finished." Just as Yi Qinghan was still dazzlingly deep in thought in midair, the roar of the beast god sounded. Yi Qinghan raised an eyebrow, and his eyes suddenly turned toward the beast god like knives. His expression darkened, and he instantly teleported over. "Ancestor? Why have you come?" What happened in the immortal realm? Yi Qinghan stared at the beast god. Although his expression was still calm, his tone was clearly urgent. Little Han, you don't know, but after you left, something big happened in the immortal realm. Within 20,000 years, Pan Xing started 2 planar wars. The beast god quickly recounted the events of these years to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's expression became colder as he spoke. In the end, when the beast god said that Xiao He had charged into the planar wars with killing intent, Yi Qinghan suddenly slammed his palm down in rage. Boom! Down below, a massive mountain peak that was hundreds of thousands of meters high was directly smashed into powder by Yi Qinghan, razing it to the ground. Countless Fey clansmen nearby turned into frightened birds and beasts as they fled in all directions. However, it was clear that Yi Qinghan had no intention of harming them. Otherwise, any city that he struck would have been turned into dust. No one dared to make the slightest sound. The beast god also didn't speak. He looked nervously at Yi Qinghan, waiting for the decision of the Emperor of the Immortal Realm. How long has this planar war been going on? After a long while, Yi Qinghan finally spoke. His voice was emotionless, but it caused the billions of Yao tribesmen to feel a chill from the depths of their souls. The beast god immediately said, "There are 8 more months to the final battle." Yi Qinghan nodded, and the tense muscles on his face relaxed slightly. His eyes that were as deep as the sea flashed, and he spoke in an extremely resolute and unquestionable tone, "Return to the immortal realm immediately, and transfer all the disciples and tribesmen to the fairyland plain. Yao Fei, immediately arrange for the people who have come over to be dispersed to the fairyland material plane. Elder, remember, it's everyone, including you." "This, all right," the beast god said through gritted teeth. After a moment of silence, he still couldn't help but ask, "Xiao He has evolved, and your strength has also increased several-fold. You still don't have the confidence to defeat him?" "No." Yi Qinghan shook his head, but his body floated into the distance. In the next second, he disappeared from everyone's sight, leaving behind an extremely resolute sentence. "Even if I don't have the confidence, I still have to go. There are my women and my brothers. Pan Xing has been looking for me for so many years. If I don't go, won't I disappoint him?" Chapter 1436. Yi Qinghan returned very quickly. He only took a few months to return to the divine world. When Yi Qinghan finally stepped into the divine world, countless figures immediately rose into the sky. Countless figures from the god world immediately rose into the sky. Countless figures from the Flame Dragon City, Flame Dragon Saint City, and Supreme Island flew towards him at lightning speed. The arch was finally back. Yi Qinghan stared at everyone as his gaze swept across the divine world. Fiery Dragon City, Sacred City, Ethereal City, Star Sea, Supreme Island, and countless other places. His gaze swept across Lei Zhen's face, Yu Qingcheng, Fireworks, Yinling, Yi Qingyu, Yi Qingwu, Yao Ji, Pandora, Yi Yaorao, Yanran, Lan Yu, Cherry Blossom, Yi Sihan, Yi Zishi, and countless others. Ha 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 ha. He suddenly laughed. He smiled, laughed heartily, and laughed maniacally. At that moment, he felt an unprecedented satisfaction. That's right. It was satisfaction. He was an orphan on Earth. He had died, but his soul had transmigrated over and become a piece of trash in the Yi family of the Fiery Dragon continent, the 7th son of the Yi family. With Xiao He, the soul ring, and his unremitting efforts, struggles, he successfully stood at the pinnacle of the divine world and became the arch of the divine world. He had countless halos, countless legends, countless women, and an unparalleled status. What others had, he had. What others didn't, he had. Living in this world, a man should be like this. What more could he ask for? He had no regrets. Now, he only wished for the final battle, the pinnacle battle, for his women, for his brothers. And for himself to stand at the pinnacle, where no one could threaten him. This battle, whether he won or lost, whether he lived or died, he would never regret it. "I'm leaving," he said with a smile. His gaze swept across his family, clansmen, and friends. No one spoke. They looked at him without any doubt. The beast god will bring you to the fairy plain. I will go to the plain battlefield and have the final battle of my life. My opponent is the divine emperor, Pan Xing, or Pan Huang. Still, no one spoke. However, some people began to shed silent tears. Their eyes did not blink, for fear that they would miss a glance. I'm leaving. Wait for me. In the end, Yi Qinghan did not say anything more. He smiled and glanced at the crowd again. Then, he turned around resolutely. His spine was like a sword in the sky. His black hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were deep. There was a kind of bleakness and decisiveness in his body. Qinghan. Little Han. Father. Uncle. Emperor. When that frail figure sped up and was about to disappear from everyone's sight, countless people began to cry out softly. Their voices were not loud, as if they were afraid that Yi Qinghan would hear them and hear their hearts bleeding. They were afraid that he would turn around and see their reluctance to leave. Countless tears dripped down, and a fine rain began to fall from the sky. When the wind blew, the rain turned into a hazy mist, blocking everyone's vision and that increasingly blurry figure. Buzz! The teleportation portal and the lava canyon lit up again under the bewildered gaze of the million-strong Immortal Realm army. Jida flew to the side of the teleportation portal with a strange expression. He wondered who would be so reckless as to barge in when the great battle was about to begin. The person who came was dressed in a green robe and had a gentle smile on his face. His eyes were like Xiao Hei's, like the sea of stars. That face was extremely familiar to everyone present. Emperor. Everyone immediately knelt down on one knee. Only Jida opened his mouth wide in surprise and shouted, "Little Han, why are you here?" "Hee, I'm not welcome." Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and gave Jida a punch. He looked at everyone and said, "Get up." "You. I thought you couldn't participate in the battle?" Jida transmitted his voice nervously. Although he did not know what secrets Yi Qinghan had, he could guess that it must be related to Pan Xing. Yi Qinghan looked into the distance and his eyes turned cold. He said, "I couldn't in the past, but I have to come now. Pan Xing is too enthusiastic. If I don't come, he will be disappointed." Jida's eyes shrank and transmitted his voice helplessly, F***CK. Xiao Hei speaks like this, and you speak like this too. Do you two brothers think that Pan Xing is some random person? He is not a random person. A random person is a beast. He is worse than a beast. Yi Qinghan laughed mockingly. Although he did not know why Pan Xing wanted to kill him, Pan Xing viewed all living beings in Pan Xing's realm as ants. He could kill them if he wanted to and play with them however he wanted. In this aspect, Pan Xing was worse than a beast. Jida shrugged his shoulders helplessly. His slightly bent back straightened. The worry and fear in his eyes disappeared. He was extremely relaxed. He grinned and said, "Forget it. Since you two brothers want to go crazy, I, Jida, may be useless, but I am not afraid of death. I will go crazy with you." That's more like my big brother Jida. Yi Qinghan smiled freely. He walked to the side and sat down cross-legged. He transmitted his voice to Jida, "There are only a few months left before the final battle. I am going to go into seclusion for a few months to see if I can make a breakthrough before the final battle." "You are going into seclusion again? Aren't you worried about Zhu Yi and the others?" Jida asked in surprise. Hee. Yi Qinghan smiled and said with certainty, "Since Xiao Hei has been in Devil Mountain for so long, Zhu Yi and the others must be fine. I believe in him." "Yes. I believe in him too." Jida looked at Yi Qinghan, who had closed his eyes and started to cultivate in seclusion. He looked into the distance and smiled. The sky of the plain battlefield was still filled with restrictions. It was dim and there was an indescribable and endless feeling. However, at this moment, Jida saw an aura slowly condensing in the sky. A great battle was about to begin, and the weather was about to change. All the celestial world armies were sitting cross-legged in the canyon. Their faces were extremely calm. Although they weren't sure what was going to happen next, they weren't afraid or panicking. That was because their great emperor was here. Time passed in the blink of an eye. A white light suddenly appeared and wrapped everyone in the lava valley. Countless warriors in and out of Devil Mountain were wrapped in it. All of them were sent into Devil Mountain. They were sent into the giant cage, the final grave of all the experts. Zhu Yi and Ice Queen had already recovered from their injuries. They had changed into clean clothes and regained their elegant and beautiful looks. The plane war wasn't over yet. No one could leave the plane battlefield. Since Pan Xing wanted to play with the 8 planes in the divine world, Zhu Yi and the other 2 went all out. Since Xiao He had entered, they would let nature take its course. Whether he lived or died, it would be up to the heavens. Haze. What a waste. These millions of people might have to die together with him. Also Jida and the others. Zhu Yi sighed. She looked behind her and noticed that Xiao He had turned his head around. His face was filled with a smile as he stared right at the million troops. Zhu Yi and Ice Queen followed Xiao He's gaze and looked into the crowd. They saw a face that made their dreams go away. Great Emperor. Their bodies shook at the same time. First, they were filled with joy. Then, they were filled with terror. In the end, the 2 of them ran towards Yi Qinghan without any hesitation. The crowd split apart. Yi Qinghan smiled and walked out. He hugged the 2 of them. His eyes were still locked onto Xiao He, but they were filled with love and pride. Boss, you. Why are you here? Xiao He's eyes were as bright as stars. He finally opened his mouth. After he said that, he realized that he said something wrong. Kiki, my woman is suffering here. My brother wants to kill people, so how can I not come? Yi Qinghan pulled Zhu Yi and Ice Queen over proudly. He gave Xiao He a bear hug. He then looked at the mountain that pierced into the sky and smiled. Xiao He, do you remember what we said in the past? If the heavens want to suppress us, then we will pierce through the sky. Xiao He grinned. He flipped his hair and said proudly, ah. Right, pierce. They're chrysanthemums. Chapter 1437. The Divine World Legion has one more expert. Oh, right. It's that 9th grade supreme martial artist in the Great Perfection realm. Hee, looks like I'll have to add more ingredients to the divine world. Yi Qinghan's sudden participation attracted Pan Xing's attention. He smiled and began to control the restriction. After a while, his voice resounded in the plain battlefield. The rules of this great battle have changed. All powerhouses of the plains, listen up. This time, your goal is no longer to accumulate points, but to kill all the martial artists from the Draconic Human Plane, the Divine World Plane, the Mammoth Beastmen Plane, the Fire Lizard Plane. Anyone who kills more than half of the warriors from these 8 planes will be considered to have defeated the planes. The one who kills the most will be the first and receive a defensive supreme spiritual treasure. The 2nd and 3rd place will be rewarded. Pan Xing's voice resounded in the plain battlefield. Except for the 8 planes, all the other planes were in an uproar. Strangely, the warriors from these 8 planes didn't seem to hear Pan Xing's words. Pan Xing is indeed targeting these 8 planes. The doubts in the minds of countless experts from the plane legions were gone. They became spirited and relaxed. Pan Xing wasn't crazy. It was just that these 8 planes had provoked him. With so many planes, it would be a piece of cake to kill 8 planes. This planar war was probably going to be the easiest planar war ever. As Pan Xing spoke, a map suddenly appeared in the sky above the countless plane strongholds. The coordinates of the 8 planes were marked on it. It was extremely clear. There was a blood-red saber on each of the 8 planes, representing the intent to kill. This plane war involved 100 planes. Except for the 20 planes that were completely annihilated in the Demon Mountain, there were still 60 to 70 planes that still had powerful forces. Most importantly, they didn't have to kill each other. They could join hands to kill their enemies. At that moment, countless planes rushed madly from their respective strongholds towards the 8 planes. They were extremely excited, fanatical, and even a little happy. Idiot. All the experts from the 8 planes didn't hear Pan Xing's words. But, except for 2 people. Yi Qinghan and Xiao He cursed at the same time. Then, the 2 of them looked at each other and were shocked. They transmitted their voices at the same time. You can hear that idiot's voice? Xiao He grinned and said, "Boss, not only can I hear sounds, I can also see that idiot at the peak of Mount Pan. The restrictive spells here seem to have no effect on me." Poor, 3 black lines appeared on Yi Qinghan's brows as he transmitted his voice. The restrictions here are ineffective against me. I see that idiot is still looking at us and smiling. Ha 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 ha. Xiao He looked at Pan Shan and the 2 of them laughed out loud. Zhu Yi, Ice Queen, and Hidden Ruler exchanged glances with one another. They didn't understand why the 2 of them were so crazy. The Celestial World Army behind them didn't know what was going on, but since the 2 great emperors were laughing, it was definitely a good thing, so they also started laughing foolishly. Pan Xing saw Xiao He and Yi Qinghan's gazes sweeping over and they seemed to be able to see him clearly. He couldn't help but hesitate. The restrictive spells in the planar battlefield were extremely strong. Because they were set up by Pan Huang, they shouldn't be able to see through them, right? Thinking about it, Pan Xing didn't bother. Anyway, the celestial world would be wiped out soon. He didn't want to guess too much about people dying. If the 2 of them wanted to laugh, then let them. He saw over 10 armies charging towards the celestial world stronghold. Swish. A few days later, the first wave of armies finally arrived. They were majestic and one couldn't see the end of them. All sorts of monsters, humans, beastmen, aberrations quietly surrounded the celestial world stronghold. Countless martial artists from different planes suddenly emerged from the white fog. Pairs of cold and eerie eyes made the martial artists from the divine world feel a chill in their hearts. Zhu Yi, Ice Queen, and Hidden Ruler all took in a deep cold breath. So many foreign armies actually appeared at the same time. And they didn't even attack each other? It seemed like they were planning to join forces to kill the Celestial World Army. Xiao He and Yi Qinghan seemed to have known about it. The 2 of them stood in front of everyone calmly and leisurely, like 2 giant dragons looking at a group of dogs. The million immortal world cultivators, after the initial panic and shock, all regained their composure when they saw the white and green figures at the front. Their gazes were indifferent as they looked around proudly. There was no longer any trace of fear on their faces. With the 2 great emperors here, what was there to be afraid of no matter how many foreign creatures came? The number of foreign planes increased, and so did the number of foreign martial artists. More than 10 planes, tens of millions of foreign plane creatures, countless level 9 experts, level 9 supreme martial artists, and pinnacle experts with supreme spiritual treasures stood outside the celestial world stronghold. Although the celestial world army was extremely strange, they didn't panic at all. Although the 2 humans at the front of the celestial world army made countless experts feel fear from the depths of their souls. None of the experts thought that they would lose. The millions of humans in front of them would be drowned and torn apart in a moment. There was no doubt about that. There were no war drums, no one giving orders. Countless foreign planes quietly rushed toward the celestial world stronghold at the same time. Countless cold eyes were filled with killing intent, a killing intent that made people suffocate. Xiao He, do you want to do it, or should I? Yi Qinghan turned his hand and took out a few jars of wine from his spatial ring. He handed 1 jar to Xiao He and the Hidden Monarch Kid. He raised his head and took a sip, speaking in an extremely casual manner. Let me do it. It's the ultimate evolution, and a few very interesting supernatural powers have appeared. I haven't used them all, so I don't know how powerful they are. Xiao He raised his head and finished the jar of wine. He threw it away casually, and with a flip of his hand, a 2-meter-long white divine sword appeared. He looked up to the sky and laughed. Good wine. How can there be no songs when there's wine? Boss, how about a song to break the formation and accompany me to kill the enemy? Break the formation? All right. Zhu Yi, the accompaniment, and Mei Er, the dance. Yi Qinghan loudly laughed, and Zhu Yi slightly smiled. She took out a zither and sat down cross-legged. She lowered her head and started to play. Her hand moved across the zither, and a desolate killing intent covered the entire mountain. Bing Mei Er also smiled. She tapped her feet, and her body swayed as she danced in the air. She was like a beautiful snow lotus blooming. Snowflakes fell from the sky, making the atmosphere even more enchanting. Haha. Yi Qinghan laughed twice and drank a mouthful of wine. He shouted, when drunk, I watch the sword by the lamp, and when dreaming, I blow the horn chain camp. Whoosh. As soon as the words came out, Xiao Hei's sword suddenly came out of its sheath. A cold light flashed, blinding people's eyes. After that, Xiao Hei didn't do anything. He took a step forward, leaving behind a series of afterimages. These afterimages looked very real, like countless clones. They spread all the way down to the foreign plane army below. 800 miles away, the sound of 50 strings flipping over the wall. When Yi Qinghan saw the countless afterimages of Xiao Hei, his eyes lit up, and his voice became more hurried. Xiao Hei's afterimages changed directions again. They started to turn into countless afterimages and spread towards the army below. There was no sound of breathing or fighting, and the enemies didn't look surprised or suspicious. Xiao Hei's body turned into tens of thousands of afterimages, crossing through the entire army. On the battlefield, the autumn picks up the soldiers, the horse moves as fast as lightning, the bow shakes like thunder. Yi Qinghan's voice became more and more hurried. Zhu Yi's music became more and more chilling. The Ice Queen's dance became more and more bewitching. The snowflakes in the sky became bigger and bigger. And Xiao Hei's afterimages became more and more numerous. They started to spread towards the army at the side. The two armies below were filled with Xiao Hei's afterimages. They couldn't be counted, but strangely, none of them disappeared. They didn't make any movements, as if they were taking a stroll, finishing the affairs of the sovereign king, winning fame in life and death. It's a pity that it happened for nothing. For nothing. Ha 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 ha. When Yi Qinghan finished the last line, he raised the wine jar and started to pour it down crazily. The fragrant wine poured down along with his unrestrained laughter. Zheng. The sound of the guqin stopped. The white lotus in the sky also stopped dancing. The snowstorm continued to fall. Strangely, all the experts from the foreign planes stopped moving forward. They all looked in the direction where Xiao Hei was rushing down. Countless martial artists in the immortal world couldn't understand. But Ji De and the other sovereign's eyes lit up. The hidden sovereign's face was red, as if he was drunk. There was a dead silence. Only Yi Qinghan's wild laughter and the sound of the wine pouring down were ear-piercing. Chi, Xiao Hei's afterimages began to disappear. From the top of the mountain, the afterimages disappeared one by one. They went all the way down, faster and faster. In the end, all the afterimages disappeared. Only a figure in snow white was left, standing proudly in front of the countless armies. He held a 2-meter-long divine sword in his hand. The cold light on it was still dazzling. Plop. Hum. A scene that millions of martial artists in the immortal world would never forget happened. The two foreign plains armies in front of Xiao Hei were a lion-shaped demonic beast army and a bird-headed, snake-bodied monster army. More than 2 million martial artists, including 11 ninth-grade supreme martial artists and dozens of ninth-grade experts, all started to bleed at this moment. Then, they all exploded. Boom. Hum. More than 2 million giant headless corpses collapsed. More than 2 million divinity crystals rose at the same time. The dazzling colorful divinity crystals lit up the sky of the immortal world stronghold. They also lit up tens of millions of pale, terrified faces. 2 million powerhouses were killed with one sword. Chapter 1438. A man should kill without mercy. 1,000 years of immortality, all in killing. In the past, there were heroic men, loyal to their word. Killing with a glare, the body lighter than a feather. There were also heroes and tyrants, killing people like flies, galloping across the world, only praising sabers and spears. Xiao He, good kill. Good kill. The wine in Yi Qinghan's hand poured down in torrents. His laughter stopped, but his heroic voice once again resounded in the surroundings. In this cruel world, if you don't kill him, he will come to kill you. Since they want to kill us, we can kill them. There is no reason in this world, whoever's fist is harder is the reason, whoever's sword can kill is a hero. Kill them until their corpses are everywhere, kill them until their blood flows like a river. We won't cause trouble, but whoever dares to be our enemy, kill without mercy. Yi Qinghan's sonorous voice reverberated in the surroundings and soared into the sky. Along with the last sentence, kill without mercy, Little Black's aura soared into the sky. His tremendous killing intent enveloped the surroundings like a gust of wind in the coldest winter. All the martial artists from the other planes began to tremble in the depths of their souls. Xiao Hei's body began to move again. It was that kind of terrifying afterimage again, spreading endlessly in all directions. This time, it was different. Wherever his afterimage went, countless heads began to bleed, flying wildly. Whether it was a low-level warrior, a 9th-grade supreme martial artist, or a 9th-grade supreme martial artist with a supreme spiritual treasure, blood spurted out of the heads of all of them as Little Black passed by. Their heads exploded with a bang, and divine crystals flew out. The scene looked extremely terrifying. Countless foreign dimension martial artists began to tremble. Countless foreign dimension martial artists' faces and backs were drenched in cold sweat. Even more martial artists began to turn around and run. Was he even someone who could be killed? Countless foreign dimension martial artists, as they fled, looked at Pan Xing and cursed in a low voice. Pan Xing was not toying with these 8 dimensions to death, he was toying with them to death. In just a moment, another 1,000,000 headless corpses fell to the ground. No one dared to fight with Xiao He, or rather, no one was qualified to fight with him. This was a one-sided massacre, a massacre that was akin to slaughtering chickens and dogs. Countless martial artists from other planes began to cry out. There were even some low-level martial artists who were scared silly and didn't dare to run anymore. Their bodies slumped to the ground, their eyes filled with despair and confusion. All hail the great emperor. All hail Emperor Xiao He. After a brief moment of shock and bewilderment, the God World Army finally saw the countless troops from other planes begin to retreat like a receding tide. All of them let out a heaven-shaking roar. His voice pierced through the heavens, causing the fleeing martial artists from the other planes to speed up even more. Boom! At this moment, a bolt of purple lightning suddenly appeared in the sky. Because of the restriction, the crowd could not see it. They could only hear a loud explosion and an unparalleled aura suddenly pressing down. Xiao Hei's body paused at that moment. His eyes were like 2 sharp swords that shot towards the sky. He sneered, this idiot finally couldn't bear it anymore and wants to take action himself? Yi Qinghan's gaze immediately shot towards Pan Xing, who was at the peak of Mount Pan. His gaze that was as bright as the stars and Pan Xing's murderous gaze met. Both of them revealed a cold smile. Yi Qinghan's expression turned serious for the first time. His gaze was still fixed on Pan Xing. He said in a deep voice, Xiao He, do you have the confidence to take it? Xiao Hei's gaze was fixed on the purple dragon thunderbolt in the sky. He grinned and said, before the ultimate evolution, I will definitely die. As for now, I can give it a try. Boom! Boom! The thunderbolt rolled and roared in the sky. Although there was only one thunderbolt, it was 100 times stronger than the thunderbolt that Yi Qinghan had triggered in the fairy plane. The thunderbolt in the sky startled all the warriors and creatures in the dimensional battlefield. 5 of the remaining 7 dimensional strongholds had already been destroyed. In the other two-dimensional battlefields, the two sides that were crazily fighting stopped fighting. They looked at the sky in fear. They felt the supreme and unparalleled aura, and they were all astonished and terrified. Boom! The thunderbolt finally came crashing down. It turned into an extremely ferocious and terrifying purple dragon that whizzed down towards Xiaohei. An extremely strange thing happened the moment the thunderbolt came crashing down. All the inhibition formations in the dimensional battlefield disappeared at this moment. The countless inhibition formations in the sky disappeared. The white fog in the battlefield disappeared. All the warriors could now use their eyes and divine senses to investigate. All the warriors couldn't clearly sense the thunderbolt in the sky. It was hundreds of meters long and hundreds of meters thick. They could see the black figure standing on the peak of Mount Pan. However, at this moment, no one had time to look at Pan Xing. Instead, they curiously followed the thunderbolt to see where it would land. The target of the thunderbolt was very obvious. A white figure stood thousands of miles in front of the heavenly realm stronghold. His robe was whiter than snow, and his long sword was enchanting. His eyes were as deep as the sea of stars. He looked at the terrifying thunderbolt proudly and fearlessly. He wanted to use his flesh and blood to resist the thunderbolt and the power of heaven and earth. Could the might of heaven and earth, the power of heaven and earth, be resisted by flesh and blood? The 70 to 80 million warriors in the dimensional battlefield held their breaths. Even the two enemies that had been fighting desperately just now stood side by side. Their divine senses were locked on Xiaohei, waiting for this shocking scene. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists tightly. The veins on his hands bulged. But he didn't make a move. Because Xiaohei said he wanted to try. He believed in Xiaohei. Zhu Yi grabbed onto the zither with all her might. Her hand was cut by the zither and it was bleeding. However, she didn't notice it at all. Her eyes were locked onto Xiaohei and she didn't dare to breathe at all. In the air, the Ice Queen's face flushed red once more. Her petite body trembled rhythmically like when she was fighting with Yi Qinghan. She was so excited that she was about to explode. On the peak of the heavenly realm stronghold, millions of warriors, hidden rulers, Jida, and many other rulers opened their eyes wide. They didn't dare to blink at all, afraid that they would miss out on such a dangerous scene. Hong! The purple thunderbolt brought with it a destructive, invincible, and all-destroying aura as it smashed down. It swallowed Xiaohei up. A giant hole appeared where Xiaohei was at a speed visible to the naked eye. One couldn't even see the bottom of it. A giant mushroom cloud rose up and covered the sky. It blocked everyone's vision and the tens of millions of divine senses. At this moment, the souls of all the warriors trembled. It was as if the thunderbolt had struck their bodies. They felt a bone-piercing chill in their hearts as the mushroom cloud rose up. It was so cold that it pierced their hearts. An ant is just an ant. How can you go against the might of the heavens? Pan Xing's voice rang out calmly. It was like an iron fist mercilessly smashing into the hearts of all the warriors. The millions of warriors in the heavenly realm, Zhu Yi, Ice Queen, hidden rulers, Jida, and everyone else felt their hearts skip a beat. They all looked towards Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's clenched fists loosened at this moment. A smile appeared on his face. Following which, the smile grew bigger and bigger. It was like a blossoming flower, incomparably resplendent. Today, I, the Emperor, will go against the might of the heavens. Let's see if you, the God Emperor, who represents the might of the heavens, is tighter than my sword. A faint voice came from the deep pit. Under the dumbfounded gazes of countless people, a white figure shot out from the pit, holding a 2-meter-long divine sword in his hand. He turned into a white flash of lightning and flew toward the peak of Mount Pan. The long sword was cold and full of killing intent. Its target was the Supreme Divine Emperor, Pan Xing, who was at the peak of Mount Pan. Chapter 1439. Someone wanted to kill Pan Xing. Everyone was dumbfounded. Who was Pan Xing? He was the Supreme God Emperor. He was the manager of Pan Realm. Normally, no one dared to talk about his name. Even if they wanted to scold him, they would do it in their hearts. Who dared to show it? Today, there was actually a human who wanted to kill Pan Xing with a sword. Countless people had the urge to cry. They cried because of this scene. They cried because there was finally a warrior who dared to go against heaven's might and challenge the supreme existence, the supreme God Emperor. No matter what, this courage was enough to make all the experts in the plain battlefield remember it forever. Everyone became excited, all of them trembling. They were all fired up from being able to see this heaven-shocking scene. Even though no one thought that this human could survive in the end. In fact, many people thought that Xiao He would definitely not be able to take one move from Pan Xing. The million-strong immortal world army was scared out of their wits. They knew that Emperor Xiao He was fierce and inhuman, but there was no need to do this, right? Was he going to make them piss their pants? The kid-hidden monarch Zhu Yi and the Ice Queen were ecstatic when they saw that Xiao He was able to withstand the divine lightning and was fine. Tears streamed down their cheeks. However, they were not surprised when Xiao He raised his sword and went for Pan Xing. Because they knew that today, the two brothers were here to kill Pan Xing. Yi Qinghan did not make any movements. Instead, she narrowed her eyes and stared quietly at Little Black. Little Black transformed into the heavenly fairy and shot towards the peak of Mount Pan like a fairy flying into a flame. Bitch! Watch this Emperor's god-slaying sword. Xiao He's body was in midair. The sword in his hand danced. As his sword danced, the natural energy of the entire plain battlefield actually gathered toward him. No. It wasn't just the entire plain battlefield. The natural energy of the universe outside the plain battlefield was also gathering toward him. An incomparable aura of terror gathered on Xiao He. His snow-white robe fluttered, his black hair danced, and his eyes were as bright as stars. His killing intent was like a rainbow. It was as if an ancient god of slaughter had descended. Countless ninth-grade supreme martial artists trembled in fear. Countless low-level martial artists were directly pressed to the ground by this great pressure, unable to even stand. The heaven-earth yuan qi in the sky had already reached an incomparably terrifying level. The pressure in the sky had already surpassed that of the divine lightning. It was enough to easily destroy all the martial artists present. Only now did the creatures from the alien planes, who had been scared witless by Xiao He, realize that Xiao He was just playing around when he killed 2 million warriors with a single strike of his sword. This was probably his strongest attack. The most terrifying attack, the god-slaying sword. Among the millions of divine world's warriors, the eyes of Zhu Yi and the others brightened. Hope rose in their hearts. Such a powerful force was enough to shatter the divine world. It should be enough to kill Pan Xing, right? Xiao He's ultimate evolution is actually to comprehend the Tao of nature. He can borrow the power of nature without limit. No wonder his strength has reached such a terrifying level. Yi Qinghan was suddenly enlightened. But he shook his head helplessly and sighed. Xiao He's strength may be comparable to Pan Xing's, but he is definitely no match for him. Xiao He's attack was finally completed. The 2-meter-long giant sword was raised high and then slashed down violently. Along with this slash, the massive natural energy of the universe he had gathered turned into a 100,000-meter-long crescent-shaped sword radiance. With the power to destroy everything, it shot toward the peak of Mount Pan. 100,000-meter-long sword radiance. A sword radiance formed by the purest energy of the universe. How terrifying was this aura? How terrifying was this energy? At this moment, everyone inexplicably believed that if this shocking sword radiance hit Mount Pan would definitely be split into two. There was no surprise at all. Time seemed to have frozen at this moment. Everything in front of them disappeared. Heaven and earth disappeared. Everyone's eyes were filled with darkness. It seemed like there was only the 100,000-meter-long sword radiance, the towering Mount Pan, and the black-robed man on the peak of Mount Pan, Pan Xing. Pan Xing finally moved. He stretched out a hand, a small hand, and lightly clapped. At this moment, Heaven and earth seemed to have frozen. There was only this pale hand left in the universe. This hand wasn't formed by the power of space or the power of the universe. It was a real hand. But the most amazing thing was, this hand wasn't big, but it gave everyone the feeling that it could cover the sky. In fact, it could indeed cover the sky. Because everyone's attention was focused on this hand. This hand made of flesh and blood slapped the 100,000-meter-long sword Radiance. Pan Xing actually wanted to use his flesh and blood to fight against the super sword Radiance that Xiao He had condensed, which was enough to split a plane. Everyone felt that the world had gone crazy. No matter how strong Pan Xing was, he was still made of flesh and blood, right? Was his body not made of flesh and blood? The answer was revealed in the next second. Pan Xing's hand was indeed made of flesh and blood. But his hand made of flesh and blood easily smashed Xiao Hei's super sword Radiance. Then, it slapped right onto Xiao Hei's body. Xiao Hei's body instantly turned into pieces of meat, splattering to the ground. A blood mist floated in the air, silence, a deathly silence. Zhu Yi and Ice Queen covered their mouths and tried their best not to make a sound. Kid opened his mouth wide. The hidden world ruler's face turned even redder. His eyes were in a daze like he was totally drunk. The million-god world warriors were filled with disbelief. They felt that the situation was one-sided just now, so how did it turn around? Only Yi Qinghan was really calm. He squinted his eyes and sighed, Xiao He won't die, so why are you panicking? Zhu Yi and Ice Queen looked towards Yi Qinghan and then at the battlefield. Under the gazes of disbelief, the pieces of meat on the ground actually congealed and slowly formed Xiao Hei's body. However, Xiao Hei's face was extremely ashen white, sickly white. Xiao Hei's dim eyes were filled with disbelief. He didn't believe that he had lost. He didn't believe that with his strength, he couldn't even take a single strike from Pan Xing. He struggled to stand up, but he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His dim eyes stared stubbornly at Pan Xing, who was at the peak of Mount Pan. He was like a lone wolf in despair. A mutant born from the supreme slaughter god blade that jumped out of the 5 elements and has an undying body. Do you really think that you are invincible and can go against the might of the heavens? I can easily suppress you. Ant will forever be an ant. Pan Xing's cold words were like knives stabbing into Xiao Hei's chest. Xiao Hei's body trembled and his heart was bleeding. His face was filled with unwillingness, rage, and killing intent. I am going to kill you. Just as Xiao Hei was about to use all his strength to fly into the sky once more, a hand was placed on his shoulder. A thin green body walked in front of him and looked at him with a doting smile. A gentle voice rang out. Xiao Hei, you are not his match. You are already outstanding enough and have done well. This isn't your fault. What happens next? Leave it to me. Chapter 1440. Boss, Xiao Hei is useless. Xiao Hei stumbled and nearly fell. He looked at Yi Qinghan bitterly, like a kid who had done something wrong looking at his parents. His face was filled with guilt. No. Xiao Hei, you have done well. It isn't that you aren't strong enough but that no one in Plate World is Pan Xing's match. Even if you become a god emperor or a supreme, you still can't do it. Yi Qinghan smiled and nodded. He glanced at Pan Xing, who was at the peak of Mount Pan, and explained, no matter how strong your cultivation is, you are still borrowing the power of heaven and earth to attack. However, Pan Xing is in control, absolute control. All the power of heaven and earth is under his control, so how can you be his match? Yi Qinghan's voice wasn't loud but it reverberated clearly in everyone's ears. The tens of millions of warriors in the planar battlefield were enlightened, revealing expressions of understanding. Pan Xing had absolute control. The power of heaven and earth that the warriors borrowed was all under his control. Pan Xing could easily take back the power of heaven and earth that they borrowed. Think about it. Who could be his match in Plate World? Zhu Yi, Ice Queen, and the others revealed bitter expressions. Xiao He used such a heaven-defying attack and still wasn't Pan Xing's match. Even if Yi Qinghan was stronger than Xiao He, what could he do? Was the outcome determined? Everyone from the god realm had a bitter expression on their faces, but not a single one of them regretted it, and not a single one of them panicked. All of them looked at Yi Qinghan and Xiao He, and the corners of their mouths curled into a slight smile. They had witnessed such a shocking battle today, and they could die with two great emperors. This outcome seemed not bad. Zhu Yi and Ice Queen's smile was the sweetest. The two of them knew that they were going to die. They were already satisfied to be able to see Yi Qinghan one last time. Now that they were able to accompany the man they loved to die, wasn't that a form of happiness? Countless experts from other planes had their divine senses locked onto Yi Qinghan and Xiao He. They also felt sorry for them. Today, two peak experts of the immortal world had died. Perhaps tomorrow, it would be their deaths. This seemed to be fate, the fate of the strong. Countless talented young men and women worked hard, fought, and cultivated. One step at a time to become an expert, but the final path was the same. He would enter this planar battlefield, this graveyard of experts, and then be forever buried here. It really is you. I should have guessed it. Pan Xing's gaze locked onto Yi Qinghan. He had a gentle smile on his face, as if he had found his most beloved lover. He shook his head and smiled. I should have guessed it when you fought the half-beast plane. In order to protect you, Pan Xi used her primordial energy to forcibly increase the strength of the man and the beast to attract my attention. At that time, apart from the bloody Gobi Desert, only your side had the fiercest battles. I should have guessed it long ago. You are the one who broke through the Plate Realm's barrier. You are the one who broke my rules. So I said that you are a retard. Yi Qinghan smiled warmly. He swore right away, causing everyone in the God World Army to smile. The faces of the tens of millions of martial artists in the planar battlefield turned green. He didn't look at Pan Xing. Instead, he swept the planar battlefield and muttered to himself, break through the Plate Realm's barrier? So, you found me because of this? For this reason, you made the numerous lives in the Plate Realm go crazy and die? You retard, can't you use your brain? Come up with such a stupid idea? If I'm not a hot-blooded person, but a cold-blooded and merciless person, and I don't show up in this planar war or any future planar wars, and I just keep hiding, are you going to exterminate all life in half of the planar wars? Pan Xing didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled even wider. He said without hesitation, so what? The lives in the Plate Realm are like ants. Even if I killed all of you and destroyed countless civilizations in the planar battlefield, in less than 1,000,000 years, another civilization will be born. Countless experts will come here again. As the ruler of the Plate Realm, I control the laws of the world and the laws of the Plate Realm. As the ruler of the Plate Realm, I control the laws of heaven and earth and the laws of the Plate Realm. Life and death are in my hands. If I want to kill, I can kill. Can you bite me? Moreover, aren't you here? Yi Qinghan smiled mockingly. His gaze met Pan Xing's again. He suddenly waved his hand and pointed at Pan Xing, saying coldly, that's why I said you are a retard. You're worse than a beast. Yi Qinghan didn't want to reason with this guy. He directly scolded him. There was no such thing as reason in this world. Whoever had the bigger fist had the right to reason. Even if you talked extravagantly and brought out the truth, could you reform Pan Xing? Could you make him put down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha? Pan Xing sneered and said faintly, since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Make your move. Since you can break through the barrier of the Plate Realm, you must have extraordinary abilities and divine powers. Show me, can an ant like you resist the power of heaven? As soon as Pan Xing said this, countless people were shocked. Their divine senses locked onto Yi Qinghan's frail body. Although they didn't understand Pan Xing's words, he praised Yi Qinghan a lot. Would another expert in the God world be more terrifying than the one just now? The eyes of many people in the God world lit up. They believed that Yi Qinghan was the strongest and there was no one who could compare to him. Great Emperor Xiao Hei's attack was already so earth-shattering. How tyrannical would a great emperor's attack be? Although many people didn't dare to hope that Yi Qinghan could kill Pan Xing, to be able to exchange a few blows with him, even if they died, they wouldn't have any regrets. Zhu Yi and Ice Queen clenched their hands and looked at Yi Qinghan with a burning gaze. They prayed silently, "Emperor, you have created many miracles. This time you will definitely create one too." All gazes and divine senses gathered on Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan smiled and slowly rose into the air. As his body rose up, his aura started to rise and rise. When Yi Qinghan's height was the same as Pan Xing's, his aura also rose to the extreme. The warriors below all sucked in a cold breath. Many experts from different planes had the same question in their minds. Was the God world's feng shui really good? In ancient times, the 10 ancient races appeared in the God world. They ruled over dozens of planes in Pangaea. Now that such a heaven-defying Xiao Hei appeared, everyone was nearly scared to death. Who knew? Yi Qinghan's aura was actually several times stronger than Xiao Hei's. Just looking at aura, Yi Qinghan and Pan Xing were on par. Pan Xing's body emitted a killing intent. It was a killing intent that no one dared to resist. Yi Qinghan was like an ocean of stars, making one feel that he was deep and immeasurable. It was as if Yi Qinghan represented a world. Chapter 1441. You do have some skills. The smile on Pan Xing's face began to disappear. The aura on his body rose infinitely. That soaring killing intent was just like the divine thunder from before. It brought along a boundless pressure and suddenly pressed down. The warrior who had just been standing for a short while knelt down again. Even countless 9th-grade supreme martial artists couldn't withstand the pressure and collapsed. At this moment, Pan Xing became an unsheathed sword. His killing intent was overbearing, wanting to destroy everything. Yi Qinghan, on the other hand, had turned into an endless void. Pan Xing's murderous intent rushed into his aura, but it was like a reverse current flowing into the sea, unable to cause any ripples. God Slayer's spear, appear. Yi Qinghan's aura rose. He waved his hands, and 10 God Slayer's spears behind him pierced out from the void. Once they appeared, the surrounding space immediately distorted, making it hard for people to see clearly. The aura of the God Slayer's spear became several times more terrifying. All the experts below knew very well that Yi Qinghan's God Slayer's spear didn't look as gorgeous as Xiao Hei's super sword light. However, based on the aura, it was definitely more domineering than Xiao Hei's. Xiao Hei's attack made everyone feel suffocated. However, Yi Qinghan's God Slayer's spear made them feel like Pan Xing's hand. Their whole bodies were trembling. Even their soul seas were trembling. When it came to a battle between experts of this level, all fancy tricks were useless. It was a battle of strength. Absolute strength. Yi Qinghan relied on the power of the cold realm, the power of cold. Pan Xing relied on the power of the Pan realm. The power of the entire Pan realm could be used by him. You really have some skills. This power is actually not the power of the Pan realm. Pan Xing stared at the God Slayer's spear beside Yi Qinghan. He felt the power contained in it and was extremely surprised. However, this surprise only lasted for a second. In the next second, Pan Xing's face revealed a cruel expression. He slowly raised his hand and grinned. However, so what? As long as you die, there will be no problems. Come. Yi Qinghan's eyes shot out brilliant rays of light, and rays of golden light also appeared on his body. The rays of light became brighter and brighter, and in the end, they engulfed him and turned him completely golden. The 10 Godslayers' spears' aura shook once again and transformed into 10 ancient dragons. With a destructive aura, they whizzed toward Pan Xing. Xiao! Wherever the Godslayer's spear passed, the space didn't tear apart, didn't twist, and didn't blur. Instead, it directly collapsed, and the surrounding space completely collapsed. Pieces of land began to collapse. Good timing. Pan Xing laughed heartily, his black hair standing on end as if he had transformed into a super scion. The killing intent in his eyes could condense into a solid substance. He opened his hands at the same time, closed his eyes, and looked solemn. At this moment, he felt that the world was in his hands, and he had absolute control over it. Boom! All of a sudden, countless lightning bolts came from the sky, circling behind him. Every lightning bolt was as thick and big as the one that smashed into Xiao He just now. Hundreds of divine thunder purple dragons were circling and dancing behind him. How terrifying was this scene? How terrifying was it? Between heaven and earth, the wind and clouds began to dance. The horrifying chi of heaven and earth, from the sky, from the ground, and from all directions crazily gathered toward Pan Xing. The wind was blowing. It wasn't a gentle breeze, nor was it a cold wind, but a hurricane. Countless hurricanes suddenly appeared, circling behind Pan Xing. The purple lightning and the hurricane whistled behind Pan Xing. The hurricane was roaring, and the purple dragon divine thunder was roaring. The huge Mount Pan began to shake at this moment. The wind and clouds danced, and the world was shocked. All the warriors in the dimensional battlefield, including all the 9th grade supreme martial artists, were prostrating on the ground. All the warriors' souls were trembling. What was the power of heaven and earth? This was the power of heaven and earth. When Pan Xing fought with Xiao He just now, he didn't reveal half of his strength. Now, he was using his full strength, gathering the chi of heaven and earth to resist the enemy. Looking at the divine thunder, the hurricane, and the horrifying energy in the divine thunder and hurricane, no one thought that a human could resist it. Undefeatable, undefeatable. Pan Xing could control the chi of heaven and earth of Pan realm. It was true. His strength was enough to make people feel hopeless. Kill, kill, kill. Yi Qinghan felt the unparalleled pressure and invincible energy from Pan Xing. But what could he do? He could only risk his life for the last battle. Therefore, he used all his strength and roared, trying to defeat the enemy with one strike. Die. No one can resist me. Die, die, die. Pan Xing's eyes were filled with mockery and disdain. He waved his hands, and the divine thunder and hurricane around him condensed into a 1,000,000-meter-long 7-colored dragon. The moment this 7-colored dragon appeared, the heaven and earth trembled. Pan Shan shook violently. The heaven and earth disappeared, and Pan Shan disappeared. Only this 7-colored dragon was left in the heaven and earth. This 7-colored dragon had an unparalleled aura. The 7-colored dragon roared silently in the sky. Then, it flew towards the 10 God Slayer spears that were as small as wooden sticks. Spin for me. Break, break, break. Yi Qinghan roared, and the 10 God Slayer spears shot towards the 7-colored dragon continuously. He had no way out. Either he destroyed the 7-colored dragon and killed Pan Xing, or he died. The first God Slayer spear started spinning crazily. Once it touched the 7-colored dragon, it immediately disintegrated. Their strength wasn't on the same level. The second spear. It pierced into the 7-colored dragon, 100 meters, explode. The third spear pierced into the 7-colored dragon, 1,000 meters, explode. The fourth spear, 10,000 meters, explode. The fifth spear, explode. The last spear pierced through the 7-colored dragon's 1,000,000-meter-long body, but it exploded powerlessly. The 7-colored dragon's color only dimmed a little, but it still carried an extremely destructive aura and smashed onto Yi Qinghan's body. Fire God Battle Armor, protect me. At the last moment, Yi Qinghan closed his eyes powerlessly and shouted with all his might. The Fire God Battle Armor had indeed protected him. However, as Yi Qinghan's body flew backward, the Fire God Battle Armor exploded into pieces. It turned into countless scale armor fragments and scattered on the plain battlefield. I lost. Yi Qinghan's body was smashed onto the demon mountain, bounced off, and smashed onto the ground, raising a cloud of dust. He laid on the ground powerlessly, and his face was filled with bitterness and desolation. An ant will always be an ant. Even if you have great strength, you are still an ant. The seven-color dragon circled high in the sky, emitting a soul-shaking aura. Pan Xing's mocking laughter resounded throughout the entire plain battlefield. No, I still have a bottleneck that I haven't broken through. If I break through it, I can easily crush you to death. I can't accept this, I can't accept this. Yi Qinghan lay on the ground, staring at Pan Xing. His body trembled and he growled. He was even more furious than Xiao He, more furious, and more unwilling. He indeed had a bottleneck that he hadn't broken through, the law of fire. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth. Now, he only lacked the law of fire. He believed that as long as he broke through the last bottleneck of the law of fire, his strength would multiply. He wouldn't suffer a crushing defeat like he did now. Unfortunately, he didn't have time. If he had a few 100,000 years, no. He was absolutely confident that he could kill Pan Xing in a few 100,000 years. Breakthrough? Huh, what a joke. Even if you break through 100 bottlenecks, you won't be my match. I can control the power of Pan Realm. What do you have? Do you have Pan Realm? With your pitiful strength, so what if I give you 10 times more? I just need to think about it and I can form 10, 100, 10,000 such giant seven-color dragons. I will use the power of Pan Realm, you. How are you going to fight me? Pan Xing laughed out loud in an unrestrained manner. It was like he had heard an ant tell a god dragon that he had learned martial arts and wanted to kill the god dragon. It was funny, incomparably funny. All the martial artists in the plain battlefield locked onto the man who was covered in blood but was roaring in rage and was filled with unwillingness. He felt an emptiness in his heart. A peerless expert of his generation was about to fall, and he felt a sense of emptiness. He felt empty because of his orders in the future. Emperor, don't be afraid. We will accompany you to the Netherworld realm. You won't be lonely. Zhu Yi, Ice Queen, and everyone else in God World looked at Yi Qinghan with heartache. They felt a wave of pain in their hearts. The Emperor had lost. Everyone's ending was decided. Die. Boss, we weren't born on the same day, month, and year, but we can die on the same day. Under that terrifying pressure, Xiao Hei's body was already really weak. However, he struggled to crawl towards Yi Qinghan. There was no unwillingness in his eyes, only satisfaction. To be able to die with his boss. Satisfaction. Could an ant really not go against the heavens? Maybe everything was fate? Like that butterfly that would never be able to fly across the ocean. Chapter 1442. No, Xiao Hei, we won't die. I still want to bring you back to my hometown, to Earth to take a look. I also want to help your aunt, the Soul Emperor, revive. Since the heavens let me, a dead person, transmigrate to this world, since the heavens let me, a trash from the Yi family, obtain the soul ring and meet you, since the heavens let me step on countless corpses to reach this stage, then the heavens won't let me die. I can't die. Yi Qinghan stared at Xiao Hei and said word by word. Although his face and body were covered in blood, although he didn't even have the strength to stand up, his body started to gather energy and he started to stand up. I can control the power of Pan Boundary. What do you have? Do you have Pan Boundary? With your pitiful strength, so what if I give you 10 times more? If I want to, I can form 10, 100, 10,000 seven-color dragons like this. If I use the power of Pan Boundary, how can you fight against me? Pan Xing's words rang in his ears, like a mountain pressing down on his shoulders. His body slowly stood up, straighter and straighter, like a sword piercing the heavens. He didn't look at Xiao Hei, who was crawling towards him, didn't look at the blissful Ice Queen and Zhu Yi, didn't look at the hidden King Kid who was prepared to die with him, the million God World warriors. He stared at Pan Xing who was at the peak of Pan Mountain. He stared right at him. After a moment, he suddenly closed his eyes. The unwillingness on his face disappeared, the anger on his face also disappeared. There was no expression on his face, no joy, no sadness, no anger, no sadness. His body started to emit golden light once again. The light was tens of thousands of feet wide. It lit up Xiao Hei's pale face, lit up the demon mountain behind him, lit up the entire plain battlefield. Abruptly, Yi Qinghan opened his eyes. At this moment, everyone felt that Yi Qinghan was different. Although they didn't know what was different about him, they could clearly feel that Yi Qinghan was different. He was like a firefly in the night, extremely eye-catching, incomparably dazzling. In Yi Qinghan's eyes, countless people no longer saw a profundity, nor did they see a sea of stars. Instead, they saw a world. Pan Xing, you can control the power of Pan Realm? You can gather the power of the Plate Realm to form countless seven-color dragons and destroy all life within the Plate Realm. But, you can't kill me. Because I no longer belong to Plate Realm. You ask me what I have? Let me tell you. I don't have Plate Realm, but I have a cold realm just like Plate Realm. You can control the power of Pan Realm, but I have the entire cold realm. You are a supreme god emperor, but I am the ruler of the cold realm. Pan Xing. Do you know why I can break through the barrier of Pan Realm? It is because I have a world. I am the ruler of that world. Yi Qinghan's calm voice reverberated throughout the entire planar battlefield. Many people didn't understand Yi Qinghan's words, such as the experts from the other planes. Many people only understood a little, such as Zhu Yi and Xiao Hei. But there was one person who understood everything. How is this possible? How could you create a world? Ridiculous, nonsense. I don't believe you. You ant, die for me, die, die, die. For the first time, Pan Xing's face showed a trace of fear. Then, his expression turned ferocious. The seven-color dragon circling above Yi Qinghan's head smashed towards Yi Qinghan with an aura that could destroy everything in Pan Xing's boundless anger and fear. Yi Qinghan didn't resist. He only showed a mocking expression. The moment the seven-color dragon smashed down, his body suddenly disappeared. He disappeared without a trace, disappeared under the lock of tens of millions of divine senses. Hiss, everyone had a look of disbelief. How powerful was this seven-color dragon? He could disappear without a trace after being locked on by the seven-color dragon? He could actually disappear right under Pan Xing's eyes? No. This can't be true. Pan Xing didn't believe it either. But just now, he felt that someone had broken through the barrier of Plate Realm. When he thought of Yi Qinghan's words, he started to feel incomparably terrified. I'm the ruler of the Frost Realm. I own a world. He was a god emperor supremacy. He was the strongest person in the god realm in name. However, he knew very well that the strongest person in Plate Realm wasn't him, but Pan Huang. The ruler of Plate Realm. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth. 5 elements, return, black hole, appear. Within the Frost Realm, Yi Qinghan stood in the void. His hands danced as the 5 basic elements of the Frost Realm surged towards him. As of this moment, the entire frigid realm was trembling with joy. Countless elements condensed in his hands. He shot them into the endless void and condensed black holes. Power of frost, come! Yi Qinghan shouted again. In the center of the Frost Realm, endless power of frost gathered towards him. It condensed in his hands, but he compressed it infinitely. Power of frost that exceeded the scope of the god realm gathered towards Yi Qinghan continuously. However, he compressed all of it in his hands, forming a sphere with an incomparably terrifying aura. Power of frost, explode. Heaven and earth origin energy, appear. Spatial shattering blade flow, appear. When the last drop of the power of cold condensed into that sphere, Yi Qinghan's eyes shot out millions of rays of light. His hands suddenly pushed out, and the incomparably terrifying power of cold condensed spheres within the cold domain suddenly shot into the void. In the end, they exploded with a loud bang. In the void, the largest and most brilliant firework in history bloomed. All the power of frost turned into nothingness at this moment. Incomparably dense heaven and earth origin energy filled the entire void and every plane of existence. Heaven and earth origin energy was not evenly distributed, so it began to form air currents and gentle winds. These gentle winds began to pick up the dust in the void. The ruins of the world began to move faster and faster, turning into spatial shattering blade flows that began to drift through the endless void, through the frost realm, never knowing fatigue. The entire frost realm emitted a gentle golden light that flashed for a moment before disappearing. But the frost realm had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. Space became incomparably stable, and most importantly, the frost realm had come to life, bursting with life. Heaven and earth stabilized, space formed. Yi Qinghan smiled. He looked around at the frost realm and laughed out loud. I've finally done it. I've done it. The frost realm has come to life. I've created a world. I've become the ruler of the frost realm, the supreme ruler. Chapter 1443. Come out, come out. Scram out. Pan Xing's enraged voice resounded on the peak of Mount Pan. The killing intent in his voice made all the warriors from the other planes shrink their necks. They crouched on the ground and lowered their bodies even more. They were afraid of angering Pan Xing and being torn into pieces by Pan Xing. However, in the planar battlefield, apart from his roars, there was no other sound. Yi Qinghan's figure did not appear again. You aren't coming out, right? Pan Xing's tiger eyes shot out streaks of remnant intent and a vicious smile appeared on his face. His body floated up and he turned into a giant sword that shot downwards towards the God World stronghold. You aren't coming out. I will tear everyone in the God World army into shreds. I will suppress that alien that was born from the slaughter god blade under the reincarnation grounds forever. I will kill all living beings in the God World and not leave a single one alive. Pan Xing stepped into the air and walked towards the stronghold. His gaze was like that of a tiger and filled with killing intent. At this moment, no one doubted his determination. He really dared to kill and he had killed numerous people. Idiot. The Million God World army all laughed and spat out these two words at the same time. Their laughter was as calm and natural as when Yi Qinghan said these two words. Idiot. Jida laughed too. Would people from the God World be afraid of death? Of course they would. But none of the soldiers under the Emperor, his brothers, were afraid of death. Idiot. Zhu Yi and Ice Queen looked at Pan Xing in disdain. This supreme being who controlled the life and death of all living beings in Pangaea was not even a millionth of their man in their eyes. Idiot. Although Blackie was still lying on the ground, he stretched out a hand and stroked his hair, flipping his hair in an incomparably showy manner. He was arrogantly telling the world that the world didn't understand his and Yi Qinghan's arrogance. He is indeed an idiot. A familiar voice finally sounded and made a concluding statement. Yi Qinghan silently appeared on the peak of Mount Pan. His black hair danced in the wind and his green robe fluttered. His face was full of mockery. It was as if, at this moment, he had become the supreme existence of Pangaea and Pan Xing had become an ant. Pan Xing, you might be an idiot, but I still have to thank you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to break through the bottleneck of the magical laws of fire so quickly. I wouldn't have gained enlightenment of the will of the Sovereign Lord, and my frigid world wouldn't have come to life. Yi Qinghan's body was frail as he stood at the peak of Mount Pan. Compared to Mount Pan, he was incomparably tiny. But at this moment, in everyone's eyes, he seemed to have become Pan Shan, and Pan Shan had become a mound of earth. His not-so-tall stature actually gave people a feeling that they could only look up to him and not surpass him. Even Pan Xing felt the same way. In the past, there was only one person in the entire Pan realm who could make Pan Xing feel this way. That was the ruler of Pan realm, Pan Huang. In the past, my comprehensions were always wrong. I always wanted to perfect my frigid world, and I always thought of every possible way to perfect it. In truth, I walked a wrong path. If it weren't for your words, I might have had to walk this wrong path for a very long time. You ask me what I have? Let me tell you, I have a frigid world. I was the one who created the frigid world. I am the ruler of the frigid world. Since I am the ruler, then this frigid world can be ruled by me. If I want it to be perfect, then it will be perfect. If I want it to have light, then the frigid world will have light. This is the will of the Sovereign Lord, the true will of the Sovereign Lord. Yi Qinghan began to speak calmly, as if he were speaking to Pan Xing, but also as if he were speaking to everyone else in the planar battlefield. Perhaps he was speaking to himself. The will of the Sovereign Lord ruled over everything. Martial artists borrowed the power of heaven and earth to fight their enemies. Divine emperors and paragons controlled the power of heaven and earth. But sovereigns created the power of heaven and earth. Sovereigns were the truly supreme beings, the truly invincible ones. This was because the world was created by them. Since they could create worlds, they could also destroy worlds and all living things. No. I don't believe it. I absolutely don't believe that an ant like you can defy the heavens. I am going to kill you. Kill you. Pan Xing raised his head and roared. His body shot towards the peak of Mount Pan. As he moved, the wind and clouds began to change color. Countless bolts of lightning came from the end of the world. Countless 7-color dragons quietly took shape. 1, 10, 100. Hundreds. Pan Xing stepped on the 7-color dragons, his face filled with murderous intent. He rushed towards the peak of Mount Pan. Hundreds of dragons roared towards Mount Pan, towards Yi Qinghan. It seemed as if they wanted to destroy Mount Pan, destroy the planar battlefield, and destroy the entire world. Boom! The 7-color dragons with unparalleled power smashed heavily onto Mount Pan, onto Yi Qinghan, and onto the sky. Boom! Mount Pan, which was billions of meters tall, suddenly collapsed and smashed heavily into the planar battlefield. The mud on its surface fell off, revealing its dark body. The material was simple and unadorned, and there were familiar images on its surface. It was actually a giant stick, a supreme spiritual treasure. However, no one paid attention to this supreme spiritual treasure. Everyone was dumbfounded as they looked at the sky above Mount Pan, at the giant hole that was millions of meters wide. Hundreds of 7-color dragons collided with each other. The purest energy in the world, the super terrifying energy that gathered all the energy of heaven and earth from several major planes, caused an explosion. It actually pierced through the sky. When a martial artist cultivated to a certain level, they could tear apart space. They could create cracks in space, distort space, and even collapse space. However, no one had ever been able to break space permanently. Whether it was cracks, distortions, or collapses in space, they would automatically heal. However, at this moment, Pan Xing had pierced through the sky. This giant hole that was millions of meters wide was no longer healing. It was as if a huge hole had been torn in a beautiful dress. It looked extremely comical, extremely awkward, and extremely ugly. The sky was pierced, but that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that the deity realm great emperor, the man who was said to have become a ruler, had disappeared. No one knew if he had been torn into pieces by the terrifying energy, or if he had fallen into the giant hole in space. Ants will always be ants. Pan Xing stood in the void, looking at the giant hole, and laughed delightfully. However, before he could finish his sentence, a cold voice came from the giant hole in the sky. Idiot. Yi Qinghan had indeed fallen into the hole. However, he had casually crossed the void and walked out. He flicked the dust off his clothes, glanced at Pan Xing, and said calmly, again? Boom! Hundreds of 7-color dragons were formed again, whistling towards Yi Qinghan. Although Pan Xing's body was trembling, his eyes were completely crazed. He knew very well that if he didn't kill Yi Qinghan today, he would die. Idiot, I told you to come again, so you would come again? Do you really think it's fun to bombard me? Facing this huge energy that could pierce through the sky, Yi Qinghan wasn't afraid at all. His expression didn't change at all. He extended a finger, pointed at the space, and said proudly, Ruler's intent, break. Chapter 1444. As that finger pointed at the void, the space suddenly lit up, as if a star had suddenly bloomed with light. Then, this bit of starfire quickly spread in all directions, instantly covering the entire plain battlefield. Wherever the light passed, the hundreds of seven-colored dragons actually disintegrated without a sound, and the entire space froze at this moment. There was only one scene in everyone's eyes and minds. In the void, a finger lightly tapped, and then a ball of light spread in all directions, enveloping the entire void. The entire void lit up, and there was only light left in the entire scene. There was nothing but light in the entire scene, and there was nothing left. Ruler's will. The undefeatable ruler's will. Pan Xing's entire body became dispirited and powerless. The murderous aura on his body dissipated like a tide, and he could no longer summon the will to fight. Because he had seen Pan Huang use this move in the past. This ant was really heaven-defying. Not only did it jump out to challenge him, but it had also completely climbed above his head, becoming a supreme existence. He had lost, utterly lost. Pan Xing, those who do evil will bring about their own destruction. Take your own life. Yi Qinghan retracted his finger, and the light in the world rapidly dissipated. The scene in everyone's eyes and minds began to change, turning into the scene of the planar battlefield. In the sky, the hole was still there, and the billions of meters tall Mount Pan was still tilting to the ground. Pan Xing stood in the air with a face full of despair. In the sky, a green voice stood proudly. They couldn't look at it directly, they could only look up. Take my own life? Ridiculous? Do you really think I've lost? I won't lose. Even if I die, I'll make you suffer forever. Haha. Pan Xing's eyes emitted a sense of decisiveness, and his face was ferocious. He laughed loudly, and his aura suddenly increased. He shouted, "Supreme God-slaying stick, rise!" The billions of meters tall Mount Pan suddenly shone brightly, and it flew up, turning into a ray of light. Pan Xing controlled the airflow and held it up. You still want to struggle? Yi Qinghan sneered and said indifferently. Although Mount Pan was a supreme spiritual treasure, it was too ridiculous for Pan Xing to struggle with a supreme spiritual treasure. Haha. Watch this Emperor's heaven-shocking staff. Pan Xing's arms danced, and the 100-million-meter-long supreme god-slaughtering cudgel danced in the air before suddenly smashing down. Courting death. A look of anger appeared in Yi Qinghan's eyes. His body flickered, and he reappeared above the God World stronghold. He pointed out with a finger. That's right. Pan Xing used the supreme god slaughtering rod, but he didn't smash it towards Yi Qinghan. Instead, he smashed it towards the God World stronghold, towards Zhu Yi Ice Queen's God World army. Yi Qinghan activated his sovereign will. Although the supreme god slaughtering staff looked terrifying, it was easily fixed in the air by Yi Qinghan. With a wave of his hand, the supreme spiritual treasure that Pan Shan had turned into was sent flying. Yi Qinghan sneered and shouted, Pan Xing, you still want to escape? The world is so big, where can you run to? Pan Xing had indeed escaped. He used the supreme god slaughtering stick to attract Yi Qinghan's attention. His body turned into a bolt of lightning and fled into the big hole in the space. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the dimensional battlefield. Wait for me here. Yi Qinghan turned around and said to Xiaohe and Zhu Yi. He took a step forward and disappeared into the big hole in the space. Pan Xing, where do you think you can escape to? Your speed is much slower than mine. The big hole in the space was pitch black, there was nothing, not a bit of light, nothing at all. Yi Qinghan's divine sense easily locked onto the escaping Pan Xing, and he coldly transmitted his voice. Pan Xing's body flew forward rapidly, and he turned his head and shouted, You can't kill me. If you kill me, Pan Huang won't let you off. I am Pan Huang's child. Pan Huang is the sovereign of Pangaea. Although you are a sovereign, do you think you are his match? Pan Huang? Hempen robe old man? Yi Qinghan's body stopped, and a barefooted old man in hempen robe appeared in his mind. He was almost sure that he was Pan Huang, the sovereign of Pangaea. Because he remembered that when he first met the hempen robe old man, he also had the same sovereign will. He was the ruler of Cold Realm. The hempen robe old man was the sovereign of Pangaea. Both had sovereign wills. But Pangaea was hundreds of times bigger than Cold Realm. The sovereign will was also hundreds of times stronger than him. Yi Qinghan hesitated. Pan Xing was Pan Huang's son, then wouldn't Pan Shi be Pan Huang's daughter? No wonder Pan Shi said that she would only tell him the identity of the hempen robe old man after he became a god emperor supreme. Should I kill him or not? Yi Qinghan was conflicted in his heart. Pan Xing's crimes were monstrous, and with Pan Xing around, Pangaea would never be at peace. So many people from the divine world had died, and Yi Feihu, Mo Shanghuang's death was not avenged. But if he killed Pan Xing, he might go against Pan Huang. Kill. Finally, Yi Qinghan thought of the heart of an expert he comprehended outside Flame Dragon City, and the unyielding Tao he comprehended outside the divine world. Unyielding to heaven and earth, unyielding to himself, unyielding to fate. He had become a sovereign. If he had to worry about this and that, then what joy was there in life? If he didn't live in pain, then what meaning was there in life? Kill Pan Xing. If Pan Huang wanted to fight, then he would fight. Finally, Yi Qinghan chose not to yield, never to yield. He chose to follow his heart. He lightly pointed with a finger and shouted, "Sovereign will, destroy. Pan Xing, die. No, no. Pan Huang, save me, I don't want to die. I don't want to die." Pan Xing felt the finger pierce through the void. The void started to light up because of the sovereign will. A power that could destroy everything spread from behind him, causing him to howl in despair. But besides his echoes, there was no other sound, and no one appeared. The light spread to Pan Xing's body. Pan Xing's body turned into nothingness at a speed visible to the naked eye. Finally, Pan Xing's body was engulfed by the light. Pan Xing, die. Pan Xing was directly destroyed by the sovereign will, but Yi Qinghan was not careless. This was because he discovered that in the void in front of him, a light was spreading at a terrifying speed. The sovereign will. Is Pan Huang here? Yi Qinghan's fighting spirit soared. His cold gaze locked onto the front, fearless and arrogant as he waited for Pan Huang's arrival. Pan Huang didn't come. That light was a path that extended from afar. The heavenly road. Second person, come in. An aged voice rang out. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows. This voice was extremely familiar. It was the voice of the hemp-robed old man. The hemp-robed old man was indeed Pan Huang. Yi Qinghan was arrogant and fearless. He strode forward along the heavenly road formed by the light. At the end of the heavenly road was a gate. The gate was wide open as if it was welcoming Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan paused and walked into the wooden house. The scene in front of him changed again. A small valley appeared in front of him. There were trees, flowers, cute small beasts, and wooden houses. There were also people, too. Second person, we finally meet again. Two people stood quietly in front of the wooden house in the valley. One wore hemp robes and was barefoot. The other had purple hair and was extremely beautiful. Pan Huang and Pan Shi. Chapter 1445. You are Pan Huang? Yi Qinghan's face was full of wariness, but he had no intention of avoiding the battle. If Pan Huang wanted to fight him, he had nowhere to run except into the frigid realm. However, he could escape into the frigid realm, but what about his women, children, relatives, and friends? If everyone's deaths were exchanged for his life, Yi Qinghan would rather die with them for revenge in the future. Therefore, when Yi Qinghan heard the hemp-robed old man's summons, he came without hesitation. That's right, I am Pan Huang, the ruler of Pan Realm. The hemp-robed old man's voice was emotionless, and his gaze was calm. Instead, Pan Shi kept shooting strange looks at Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan went straight to the point. Pan Xing is your son? Pan Huang answered straightforwardly, you can say so. You can say so. Yi Qinghan did not linger on this ambiguous answer. His aura surged, and he stared at Pan Huang with surging battle intent. Then come. Here or outside? What do you mean here or outside? Pan Huang didn't move, and he asked doubtfully. Let's fight. Yi Qinghan looked at Pan Huang doubtfully, and said, I killed Pan Xing. You called me here not to start a fight with me? Haha. Pan Huang laughed loudly, and a bitter expression appeared on his face. He exchanged a glance with Pan Shi, then turned and said, You killed Pan Xing, but why should I start a fight with you? Yi Qinghan was enraged, and he shouted coldly, I killed your son, and you're not going to take revenge? Are you playing with me? Haha. Pan Huang smiled warmly, Yi Qinghan, you misunderstand. In fact, Pan Xing is my son, and you are also my son. All the lives in Pan Realm are my children. Pan Realm was created by me, and all lives are derived from Pan Realm. Aren't all the lives in Pan Realm my children? Say, a lion killed a rabbit. Should I help the rabbit kill the lion? There are so many planes in Plate Realm, and countless lives are dying every day. Am I supposed to avenge them all? This, Yi Qinghan was confused. It seemed like Pan Huang's words made sense. Pan Huang smiled and continued, you also established the Cold Realm. In the future, the Cold Realm will give birth to life, and the life inside will kill each other. Would you kill another life for the sake of one? Of course not. Yi Qinghan said with absolute certainty, all lives in there are equal. I have no right to deprive them of their lives. That's right. Pan Huang's gaze turned deep. As rulers, we only need to ensure that Pan Realm's Cold Realm is not destroyed. As for the matters inside, there is no need for us to interfere. Otherwise, we will destroy the balance. Once the balance is broken, the world will most likely be destroyed. And, so you're not going to start a fight with me? Yi Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief. He had always been very peace-loving. It would be best if they could not start a fight and play their own game. Pan Huang did not know whether to laugh or cry. You are the second person that this old man has waited for countless epochs. This old man has been alone for so many epochs and finally found a kindred spirit. How can I start a fight with you? Furthermore, this old man has never killed before. The time I truly attacked was also just once. Sigh, that's good, that's good. Yi Qinghan rubbed his hands together, his face full of smiles. The last time they met, Pan Huang had already discovered his Cold Realm, but he had not shown any hostility. At that time, if Pan Huang wanted to crush him, it would really be no different from stepping on an ant. Furthermore, at this moment, he was not Pan Huang's match. If Pan Huang wanted to kill him, why was there a need to be so polite? At that moment, Yi Qinghan sat down on a stone table in front of the wooden hut and beckoned Pan Huang over. Come and sit, come and sit. Don't stand on ceremony. That's right, Pan Shi. I've fought a great battle and am a little thirsty. As the host, shouldn't you serve me some fine wine? Pan Huang and Pan Shi exchanged glances. Looking at this hooligan-like ruler of the Cold Realm, they smiled bitterly and were speechless. Pan Huang walked over and sat down beside him, but Pan Shi glanced at Yi Qinghan. With a flip of her hand, she took out a jar of spiritual liquid and poured it for Pan Huang and Yi Qinghan. Good stuff. No way, Pan Shi, you have to give me a few jars. I'll take them back. Yi Qinghan drank a mouthful, his mouth full of fragrance. He winked at Pan Shi and then said to Pan Huang with a serious expression, Pan Huang, since you said that I'm the second person and you're the first, I'll call you Big Brother in the future, okay? The title is just a code name. Do as you wish. Pan Huang did not mind and casually agreed. Big Brother. Yi Qinghan immediately called out affectionately. Then, he actually placed a hand on Pan Huang's shoulder and put his arm around Pan Huang's back. Pan Shi's beautiful eyes suddenly widened, her face filled with disbelief. There was actually someone in this world who dared to put his arm around Pan Huang's shoulder? Pan Huang was clearly not used to it, but he did not express anything. He only looked at Pan Shi with a bitter smile. Big brother. Yi Qinghan ignored him and affectionately hugged Pan Huang, calling him big brother as if they were brothers who had been separated from each other for many years. He sized up Pan Huang with a sneaky smile, causing goosebumps to rise all over Pan Huang's body. Just as Pan Huang was about to ask, he said, Big brother, look, we're just brothers. You've just acknowledged me as your younger brother, so you should at least show some appreciation, right? Appreciation? What do you mean by that? Pan Huang appeared confused. Yi Qinghan rubbed his hands and said with some embarrassment, It's a greeting gift. You've been the boss of Pan Realm for many years, and I've only just been promoted. You have a lot of treasures. Did you casually give me millions of Supreme Spirit treasures? Black lines appeared on Pan Huang's forehead, and he decisively refused. No, do you think that thing is a divine artifact? Besides, what do you want it for? You don't even have that? Stingy, Yi Qinghan frowned and said, Then help me do one or two things. Tell me what it is first. Pan Huang said warily. He could also see that this new ruler of the cold realm was probably from the underworld. The moment he arrived, he had swindled and extorted. He had to be on guard. It's nothing big. Help me resurrect a few dozen family members. Yi Qinghan casually said, revealing his true goal. Lord Devour, the Soul Emperor, Yi Dao, Long Sainan, Yi Feihu, and so many others, as well as his deceased family and friends, had to be approved by this old man. If he was in the cold realm, he could easily resurrect them. But in Pan realm, it would depend on this old man. No. As Yi Qinghan expected, Pan Huang straightforwardly refused. Humph. Big brother, you're so heartless. Yi Qinghan angrily slammed the table and stood up. He blew his beard and glared, frowning as he looked at Pan Huang. This won't do, that won't do. I don't recognize you as my big brother anymore. In the future, we won't have any contact. I don't want you as my big brother anymore. I'm leaving. Don't send me off. With that, Yi Qinghan was about to leave in a huff. Pan Huang and Pan Shi looked at each other, not knowing what to do. When he reached the portal, Yi Qinghan stopped. He turned around and said with a flattering smile, A few dozen won't do? Then I'll resurrect 10, right? Big brother, I, Yi Qinghan, am a ruler. Give me some face. If I go back like this, I won't have the face to see anyone. Pfft. Pan Shi cracked a smile, and it was like a lily blooming, causing Yi Qinghan's heart to sway. Pan Huang pondered for a moment, feeling conflicted. Finally, he sighed helplessly and said, Only one can be resurrected. There won't be a next time. One, then. Yi Qinghan was overjoyed when he heard that. As long as Pan Huang relented now, wouldn't it be difficult in the future? With his means, he would have Pan Huang help resurrect them all sooner or later. At that moment, Yi Qinghan jogged over with a cheeky smile and put his arm around Pan Huang's shoulder again. He was so enthusiastic that Pan Shi turned around. Big brother, you're a righteous person. I've decided to be your big brother in this lifetime. When you're free in the future, come to my cold realm and take whatever you like. If you want 1,000,000 beauties, I won't even bat an eye and give them to you. Huh, I'm just joking. Big brother, you're just too boring. You'll get old easily. Yi Qinghan started to swindle again, almost causing Pan Huang to go berserk. Finally, Yi Qinghan started to ask about serious matters. Oh, right. Big brother, my soul comes from a place called Earth. Is this Earth a plane within your Pan realm? Of course it's a plane. Pan Shi answered. She was in charge of the cycle of life and had investigated Yi Qinghan before. She was very familiar with Yi Qinghan and answered, It's a material plane, a plane attached to the Milky Way. Why, do you want to go back and take a look? Of course I have to go back and take a look. If there's time, I'll have to trouble Fairy Pan Shi to lead the way. Hee, we can also talk about our dreams and whatnot. Yi Qinghan stared at Pan Shi with a burning gaze, causing her to blush. Yi Qinghan knew when to stop and asked another question in his heart. Big brother, what's the secret of the Supreme Slaughter God Saber? Why is it incomplete? The Supreme Slaughter God Saber had followed Yi Qinghan for many years. Yi Qinghan had deep feelings for it. Now that the boss of Pan Realm was here, he naturally had to ask. Pan Huang explained, the Supreme Slaughter God Saber is indeed incomplete. It's the blade of an axe. As for the axe shaft, I'm sure you've seen it before. I've seen it before? Yi Qinghan scratched his head in confusion. Then, his eyes narrowed and he exclaimed, Pan Shan. It's the Supreme Slaughter God staff that Pan Shan turned into. Pan Huang nodded and said, this axe is a weapon that was born with me back then. The only time I used it was when I used it to split open heaven and earth. After that, heaven and earth were created, and Pan Realm evolved. The might of this weapon was too great, far surpassing that of a paragon spiritual treasure. So, I tore it apart, split it into two, and threw it into Pan Realm. Oh. So that's how it is. Yi Qinghan suddenly understood. This was Pan Huang's weapon. No wonder it had the might of a paragon spiritual treasure even when split into two. The Slaughter God Saber was originally an axe blade. It was modified by the ancestor of the fiend world with the blood of an evil demon, turning it into its current form. Wait for me to go back. I'll think of a way to connect the Supreme Slaughter God staff with the Slaughter God Saber and see if it can recover its might. Splitting heaven and earth with one axe, this weapon is too awesome. Yi Qinghan secretly made up his mind. In the next second, he suddenly thought of something. His eyes widened as he stared at Pan Huang in shock. After a long time, he said, splitting heaven and earth with one axe? Pan Realm? Pan Huang? Your surname is Pan, and you used an axe to split heaven and earth? You can't be Pan Gu, right? Pan Huang said disapprovingly, some planes indeed call me Pan Gu. Is there anything strange about that? Pan Gu splitting heaven and earth. Yi Qinghan rubbed his nose embarrassedly. After a long time, he squeezed out 4 words, God damn it, end of book.